The first thing they returned was not the money. It was the air. In March of 2026, I stood outside the former warehouse of Cassidy Events and Air, while county trucks backed toward the loading bays. One by one, workers rolled out the same high-grade air purifiers my sister had once posed beside for cameras, claiming she had delivered them to families who could not breathe safely during wildfire season. The morning smelled of wet pavement and cold pine. Metal wheels rattled over the concrete. Above the entrance, 2 workers loosened the bolts holding a white and blue sign that read "Clean Air Hero," with Cassidy's smiling face printed beneath the words. By then, my sister had already learned that a camera could preserve more than the story she wanted people to see. She had once held my rescue inhaler above me while I fought for air, certain she could edit the moment into proof that I was unstable. What she did not know was that 911 was still on the line, and the evidence she tried to erase would eventually help send her to prison. Before I tell you how my own family turned a medical emergency into entertainment, I hope you are doing well today. Stay with me, because the worst thing Cassidy did was not what happened on that floor. And please subscribe to the channel so you do not miss what happened when the truth finally caught up with her. 18 months earlier, on August 28, 2024, I drove south from Eugene beneath a sky the color of dirty glass. Wildfire smoke had drifted across southern Oregon for days, flattening the sunlight and turning the hills beyond the highway into gray shapes. Even with the vents closed and the cabin filter running, the air carried a faint burnt taste. My chest was not tight yet, but I kept my rescue inhaler in the cup holder where I could reach it without searching. I had not returned to Red Cedar because I missed home. I had come because my father sent me a photograph at 4:13 that morning. The image showed a strip of corrugated metal, part of a padlock, and the painted number 47. A red wax mark crossed the edge of something silver near the bottom of the frame. There was no message beneath it. My father, Owen, had suffered a stroke 3 months earlier. He understood far more than most people realized, but forming words had become slow and exhausting. When I called, my mother answered his phone and said he must have taken the picture by accident. I did not believe her. My mother had spent my entire childhood explaining away whatever made the family uncomfortable. When Cassidy emptied a school fundraiser envelope 11 years earlier, Mom called it a misunderstanding. When I found the missing cash in Cassidy's purse, Dad asked me to stay quiet because one mistake should not ruin a 20-year-old girl's future. I was 27, old enough to know what they were asking, and still foolish enough to believe silence might buy peace. It bought Cassidy protection. It bought my parents another decade of pretending. It cost me Red Cedar. I left after that autumn and built a life 3 hours north. By 2024, I managed emergency logistics for a regional relief network. My work was not glamorous. I tracked generators, medical supplies, cots, filters, water, fuel, and the people who needed them. I knew how quickly one incorrect number could send help to the wrong place. I also knew a warehouse door and an unexplained asset mark were not the kind of things my father photographed by accident. My plan was simple. I would attend the Clear Skies distribution event, where Mom said Dad would be, speak with him directly, identify Unit 47, and leave Red Cedar within 2 days. I had booked a motel room. I had told my supervisor where I was going. I had even emailed myself a copy of the photograph before starting the drive. That was one of my better decisions. The Red Cedar Community Center sat beside the high school football field, surrounded by temporary signs warning residents about unhealthy air. Volunteers in blue shirts moved boxes under a covered walkway. Parents waited with children wearing small masks. Older people sat near portable fans while Cassidy stood beneath a banner printed with her nonprofit's logo and the image of a sleek white purifier. My sister looked exactly as she did in every local news clip. Honey blonde hair curled over one shoulder. White blouse without a wrinkle. A small microphone clipped near her collar. Her phone rested on a stabilizer held by a teenage volunteer, live streaming her as she thanked donors and promised that no vulnerable family in Red Cedar would be left without clean air. Cassidy saw me before I reached the registration table. Her smile paused for less than a second, then widened. "Jocelyn," she called. "You came." The way she said it made my arrival sound like a surprise gift instead of something Mom had reported to her that morning. "I came to see Dad." "Of course you did. She stepped close enough for the live stream to catch both of us. Everyone has been worried about him. Some of us have been here the whole time. There it was. The old family sentence in a newer dress. Cassidy stayed. Jocelyn left. Therefore, Cassidy loved more. I did not answer for the camera. I looked past her toward the distribution tables. The banner advertised a high-efficiency model purchased through the county-administered grant. Several of the machines lined up for families were shorter, older units with yellowed plastic around the vents. A volunteer lifted one onto a cart. The sticker on its side carried the Clear Skies logo, but the manufacturer's plate near the bottom showed a different model designation. I took out my phone and photographed both labels from the public side of the table. Cassidy's smile tightened. Still working, even on a family visit? What model did the grant purchase? We have several approved units. That is not what your banner says. She laughed softly for the live stream. My sister manages spreadsheets for a living. She thinks every room is an audit. A few volunteers smiled because Cassidy had given them permission to. I did not explain my job or defend myself. I took another photograph. Then I saw my father. Owen sat near the east wall in a wheelchair, thinner than he had been in the spring. His left hand rested on a black tablet. His right hand held the red wax pencil he had used for inventory work since I was a child. Dad used to mark every appliance that passed inspection with one short red line beside the cereal plate. He said stickers could be replaced, but a careful person always left a second trail. His eyes locked on mine. He tried to stand, and a volunteer put a hand on his shoulder. "Dad, stay seated," Cassidy called without turning away from the camera. The wax pencil slipped from his fingers and rolled under one of the machines. I bent to retrieve it. Beside the manufacturer plate, almost hidden by a newly printed Clear Skies asset sticker, was a narrow red mark. Dad pointed at the mark, then toward a locked service door at the back of the center. His mouth worked around a sound that did not become a word. 40, he managed. Mom appeared between us carrying a clipboard. He gets stuck on numbers now. Mara says not to pressure him. I am not pressuring him. You have been here 5 minutes. Dad tapped the tablet hard enough to make the case click. Cassidy glanced over, saw the red pencil in my hand, and walked toward us. "We are about to demonstrate the airflow," she said. "Can this wait until after the live stream? Turn the camera off, and it can happen now." Her expression remained pleasant, but the skin around her eyes changed. "This event is for the community, Jocelyn. Not everything has to stop because you arrived." An employee from Cassidy's private event company rolled a compact haze machine beside the display purifier. I recognized the black housing and the sweet chemical scent before the machine fully started. A pale stream spread across the floor, designed to make the purifier's intake visible on camera. The smell struck the back of my throat like hot syrup. I stepped away immediately. "Turn that off." Cassidy kept her attention on the live stream. The haze is water-based and safe. Safe for most people is not safe for everyone. "Turn it off." The employee looked at her. Cassidy made a small circular motion with one finger, telling him to continue. My airways narrowed before fear had time to catch up. The first breath came in shallow. The second stopped halfway, as if a belt had tightened beneath my ribs. I moved toward the east exit, pulled my inhaler from my pocket, and used it according to the plan my pulmonologist had given me after a serious attack years earlier. Usually, relief began quickly. That afternoon, it did not. I pushed through the door into the covered entryway. Smoke from the wildfire hung outside, so going farther into the parking lot would not help. I stayed near the doorway, away from the haze, and tried to speak. The sentence broke after 3 words. That was my threshold. I took out my phone and called 911 while I could still provide my location. "Severe asthma attack," I said when the dispatcher answered. "Red Cedar Community Center. East entrance. Rescue inhaler used." Not improving enough. She asked whether I could speak in full sentences. I tried and failed. She told me paramedics were being dispatched, instructed me to put the call on speaker, sit down, and stay connected. I lowered myself beside a wooden bench. My knees pressed against rough concrete. The edges of my vision began to lose detail. Every breath made a thin, tight sound that seemed too small to belong to an adult body. I placed the phone face up near my shoe, but the screen dimmed after a few seconds. I needed both hands to steady the inhaler and prepare the next dose in my action plan. Cassidy came through the doorway holding her own phone vertically. She was filming. "Stop," I managed. "Everyone just watched you storm out of my event," she said. "Now they get to see why." I raised the inhaler. Cassidy reached down and snatched it from my hand. For a moment, I stared at the blue plastic between her fingers. I could not understand the action because no reasonable person would take rescue medication from someone who could barely breathe. Then she lifted it near her shoulder, just outside my reach, keeping my face centered on her screen. "Give it back," I said, though only part of the sentence carried sound. Cassidy smiled at the camera. "Gasp, loser. This will be hilarious." My knees slid fully to the floor. Pressure crushed inward from both sides of my chest. I reached for the inhaler, but she stepped back. Mom appeared behind her. She looked at me, then at Cassidy's phone. "Do not let her ruin the whole video," she said. "The paramedics are probably already coming." That sentence told me everything about the order of importance in my family. Cassidy's footage came first. My breathing came second. Mom's belief that help would arrive eventually was enough to excuse what happened before it did. A woman's voice burst from the phone near my foot. "Ma'am, give her the inhaler now. Paramedics are on the way." Cassidy froze. Her eyes dropped toward the dark screen on the concrete. "Who is that?" she asked. "This is emergency dispatch. Return the medication immediately." Cassidy's face changed, not into concern, but calculation. She looked at her camera, at Mom, and then at the inhaler as if deciding which version of the scene could still be saved. "She already used it," Cassidy said. "She does this when she panics." The dispatcher repeated the instruction. Cassidy hesitated long enough for the silence to become an answer. Then my father struck the inside of the glass door with the flat of his hand. Owen had pushed himself close to the entrance. His tablet hung from its strap. He pointed at Cassidy, then toward the back of the building. 47, he forced out. "Red marks." Mom turned on him. "Owen, stop. You are confused." He hit the glass again. Sirens rose beyond the parking lot. Cassidy finally dropped the inhaler beside my hand, but she kept filming until a paramedic ordered her to move. A mask covered my face. Medication mist cooled my mouth and throat. Someone lifted my phone from the ground and told dispatch they had reached me. Cassidy spoke rapidly to a police officer who arrived behind the ambulance. She said I had become emotional, grabbed at her, and frightened the volunteers. Mom nodded beside her. Neither of them mentioned the haze machine until I tried to point toward it. The employee had already rolled it away. As the paramedics loaded me into the ambulance, Dad pressed his palm against the dusty glass door. With one finger, he wrote the number 47, slow enough that I could follow every line. At the hospital that night, after the nebulizer treatments and the first steroid dose loosened my chest, I opened the photograph he had sent before dawn. I enlarged the lower corner until the pixels blurred. Behind the red wax mark was the edge of a metal door. Above it, in chipped black paint, were 2 words and a number. Unit 47. The hospital kept me overnight because my breathing improved in waves instead of all at once. The first nebulizer treatment loosened the vice around my chest, but the relief faded before the nurse finished entering my medication history. A second treatment helped more. By midnight, I could speak without stopping every few words, though my voice had been scraped down to a dry whisper. The emergency physician listened to my lungs twice before deciding I did not need intensive care. He prescribed a short course of oral steroids, reviewed the action plan stored in my phone, and told me not to drive until the dizziness and tremor from the medication had passed. He documented the wheezing, reduced airflow, elevated pulse, and the times each treatment was given. When I told him Cassidy had taken my inhaler, he entered it under patient-reported history. That distinction mattered. A medical record could prove I had suffered a serious asthma attack. It could not prove who had taken the inhaler, unless someone had witnessed it or another record supported my account. The dispatcher had heard enough to become the first neutral witness. A police officer came to my room shortly after sunrise. He did not arrive with handcuffs or an announcement that Cassidy had been arrested. He asked me to describe what happened in order, beginning with the haze machine and ending when the paramedics took over. I gave him the name of the community center, pointed out where my phone had been lying, and told him the dispatcher had spoken directly to Cassidy. He wrote everything down, then said the call recording would be requested through the proper process. "What did my sister say?" I asked. "She said she picked up the inhaler because she thought you had already overused it." "That is not what happened. I understand that is your statement." His careful wording irritated me, but it was honest. He had two sisters telling different stories. A mother supporting one of them, and a chaotic scene full of volunteers who had been watching a live stream instead of the floor. The recording would matter more than my anger. After he left, I opened my phone and saw that Cassidy had already chosen the version she wanted Red Cedar to believe. Her video began with me on my knees. The haze machine was gone. My first attempt to leave the room was gone. My call to 911 was gone. The clip showed my hand reaching toward Cassidy while she stepped backward, holding something outside the frame. Then it cut to the paramedic pushing between us. The caption read, "My estranged sister returned after 11 years and disrupted a clean air event for vulnerable families. Please keep our father and our volunteers in your thoughts." Estranged was a useful word. It erased why I had left and made distance sound like a character defect. Disrupted turned an asthma attack into misconduct. Vulnerable families placed Cassidy among the people being harmed instead of among those doing harm. The comments multiplied while I watched. Some people remembered me from high school. Others knew only Cassidy's charity interviews. They called me jealous, unstable, attention-seeking, and cruel for upsetting our father after his stroke. One woman wrote that Cassidy had stayed in Red Cedar while I had run away to build a career. Another said the video proved exactly what Cassidy had warned everyone about. My thumb hovered over the comment box. I could have explained the haze machine. I could have written that 911 heard everything. I could have posted the photograph of Unit 47 and asked why my father had sent it before dawn. Instead, I closed the app. Cassidy wanted a public argument because she controlled the footage people had seen. Anything I wrote while exhausted, medicated, and furious could become another screenshot. I needed the original files preserved before she decided which ones no longer existed. At 8 that morning, I called a local attorney named Helen Ward. I knew her only by reputation through nonprofit compliance work. My voice was so hoarse that she asked whether I wanted to postpone the consultation. "No," I said. "The evidence can disappear faster than my voice recovers." Helen did not promise me justice before lunch. That made me trust her. By late morning, she had sent written preservation notices to Cassidy, Clear Skies Red Cedar, Cassidy Events and Air, the community center, and the vendor listed on the public event page. The notices identified the live stream archive, original phone video, employee texts, work orders, invoices, building cameras, and any cloud backups connected to the event. She also submitted the appropriate request to preserve the 911 audio and dispatch log. "Preservation does not mean they will hand everything to us today," Helen warned. "It means they are now on notice not to destroy relevant material." What if Cassidy deletes it anyway? Then deletion becomes information. That was the first useful thing anyone had said to me since the ambulance doors closed. Marlene arrived shortly after noon, carrying a small overnight bag from my motel. She had brought a clean blouse, sweatpants, my charger, and the expression she used whenever she believed someone else had created a problem she would now have to manage. She set the bag on the chair without touching me. "Cassidy was terrified," she said. I looked at her. Of what? She did not know how serious it was. The dispatcher told her. By then, everyone was shouting. I was not shouting. I could barely speak. Mom pressed her lips together. "This is what you do, Jocelyn. You turn one terrible moment into a case file. One terrible moment is enough when someone takes away medication during a medical emergency." She gave it back. After emergency dispatch ordered her to. Mom glanced toward the open door, checking whether a nurse could hear us. Even after everything, privacy mattered to her more than honesty. "She thought you had used too much," she said quietly. That is the story Cassidy gave the police. It could be true. It is not. Her shoulders lowered as if I were exhausting her. "Your father cannot handle this." He barely slept. His blood pressure was high all night. "Then let me speak to him." "No, you cannot." The answer came too quickly. I asked for the name of the company that supplied the haze machine. Mom said she did not know. I asked for the original video. She told me Cassidy had already posted what she had. I asked why Dad had sent me a photograph of Unit 47. For the first time, Mom looked genuinely frightened. It was probably an old storage picture. Why did he send it at 4:13 in the morning? He gets confused about time. Does he get confused about red inventory marks too? Her fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. Then she changed direction. There are things you do not understand. Cassidy's business is tied to this family. If you make accusations before you know what you are doing, the house could be affected. The house had finally entered the conversation. Not Dad's health, not my breathing, not the family's receiving the wrong machines. The house was the first concrete thing she had offered me, and she had offered it as a warning. How is Cassidy's company tied to the house? I am not discussing finances while you are on medication. You brought them up. I am asking you to go back to Eugene when the doctor releases you. I'm not leaving until I speak to Dad without Cassidy answering for him. Mom picked up her purse. You always come home believing you are the only person capable of making a good decision. The accusation struck because part of it was true. I had spent years cleaning up systems other people neglected, and competence had hardened into a habit of assuming I should take over. But Mom was using a flaw I recognized to hide something she did not want examined. I make bad decisions too, I said. Staying quiet for 11 years was one of them. She left without saying goodbye. The doctor discharged me the following morning. My lungs sounded better, but my hands still trembled from the medication, and my ribs ached from the effort of breathing. I took a taxi to the motel, slept for 4 hours, then called Mara Chen. Mara had been Dad's speech-language pathologist since the second week after his stroke. She did not discuss his treatment when I introduced myself. She listened while I explained that Dad had tried to communicate with me at the community center, then asked whether I had his permission to join a session. I do not know, I admitted. No one lets him answer. There was a pause. I can ask him, she said. That afternoon, I took another taxi to my parents' house. I was not expecting a warm welcome, but I wanted to give Dad the chance to see me before Mara's next appointment. Cassidy opened the door before I reached the porch. Her phone was already raised. You are not supposed to be here, she said. According to whom? Mom, Dad's care team. Everyone who is trying to keep him stable. Did Dad say he did not want to see me? He cannot always understand what he wants. The sentence revealed more than Cassidy realized. I kept my hands visible and stayed off the threshold. I have contacted Mara. I will speak with him through her. Cassidy angled the phone closer to my face. You really cannot stop, can you? I am stopping this conversation. I turned away. She followed me 2 steps down the walkway, narrating for her camera. This is what I mean. She appears, makes demands, then walks away when anyone challenges her. I did not turn back. Refusing to provide more footage felt unnatural after years of defending myself sentence by sentence. It also worked. Cassidy had a recording of my back and nothing else. Mara called the next morning. Dad had agreed to see me. The meeting took place in a quiet therapy room at a rehabilitation clinic in Medford. Mara sat beside Dad, not between us. His black tablet rested on a stand. A laminated board with common words and pictures lay on the table. When I entered, Dad looked older than he had through the glass at the community center. The left side of his mouth pulled slightly when he tried to smile. I sat across from him and began too fast. Dad, I need to know what Unit 47 is, and whether Cassidy moved the grant machines, and why you sent me that photograph. His face tightened. His right hand hovered over the tablet without touching it. Mara lifted one finger. One question at a time. I nodded, embarrassed. Did you send me the photograph? Dad pressed yes. Was Unit 47 important? He pressed yes again. Did Cassidy put the machines there? His fingers moved, stopped, then moved again. I saw the word he was trying to find and supplied it without thinking. Did she move them? Dad pulled his hand away from the screen. Mara did not scold me. She waited until I understood. I had accused Cassidy of stealing Dad's voice while doing a more polite version of the same thing. I'm sorry, I said. Take your time. Silence filled the room. My instinct was to repair it, explain it, turn it into progress. I folded my hands in my lap and waited. Dad touched the screen one letter at a time. His breathing became audible with the effort. He made an error, erased it, and started again. Nearly 2 minutes passed before the tablet spoke in its flat electronic voice. Cassidy moved air. I looked at Mara, but she kept her attention on him. Dad opened the photo gallery. He selected a screenshot from a public promotional video posted by Cassidy Events and Air months earlier. Cassidy stood in the foreground of a hotel ballroom, smiling beside a floral arch. Behind her, lined against the service wall, were dozens of high-grade air purifiers. I enlarged the image. Near the manufacturer plates, small red marks cut across the silver housings. Dad typed again. This time I did not help. 47 first, the tablet said. Hotel later. My father's words gave me a direction, but they did not give me permission to treat everyone around Cassidy as guilty. I forgot that distinction the next morning. The steroids had left a metallic taste in my mouth and a tremor in my fingers. My breathing was steadier, though climbing the motel stairs still made my chest ache. I had extended my stay in Red Cedar by 1 week and arranged to work limited hours from my laptop. My supervisor knew I was dealing with a family emergency. She did not know that the family emergency included diverted charitable assets, a warehouse number, and an embezzlement theory I could not yet prove. The public grant documents listed Grant Molina as the County Emergency Management Coordinator assigned to Clear Skies Red Cedar. His signature appeared on several quarterly reports Cassidy had posted as part of the nonprofit's transparency campaign. Those reports claimed the first major shipment had been received, verified, and distributed to high-risk households. I called his office and asked for a meeting. Grant agreed to give me 20 minutes in a conference room at the county administration building. He was in his early 40s, with tired eyes and a desk covered in wildfire maps, air quality reports, and unopened supply catalogs. He offered me water, then waited while I placed printed photographs on the table. The first showed the machine at the community center. The second showed its manufacturer plate. The third was the promotional screenshot Owen had saved from Cassidy's event company. Grant studied them without touching them. Your signature is on the receiving reports, I said. Did you inspect these machines before Cassidy distributed them? I verified the shipment records submitted by the nonprofit. That was not my question. His expression cooled. Then ask the question you came here to ask. Did you help Cassidy move restricted equipment into her private company? Grant leaned back in his chair. I had planned to sound precise. Instead, I sounded like someone who had already decided what the evidence meant and wanted him to confess before my 20 minutes ended. No, he said, and you should be careful about making that accusation. Your name is on the forms. My name is on hundreds of documents. That does not make every document authentic. Are you saying the signature is forged? I am saying I have not examined the source file yet. He slid the photographs back toward me. Grant explained that the county could provide grant agreements, purchase records, inventory requirements, and reports subject to disclosure. It could not hand me a list of families who received equipment, especially when those records could reveal addresses, medical vulnerabilities, or eligibility information. I do not need medical records, I said. I need to know which machines went where. And you are not the grant auditor. The words landed harder because they were true. I had spent years working inside emergency systems. I understood why access rules existed. Yet the moment the restrictions slowed me down, I had begun treating them as obstacles instead of protections. Grant continued, I can initiate a review of the electronic files attached to my name. I can compare the PDFs against originals in our document system. I can also alert the grant administrator that there may be an asset control problem. What I cannot do is give a private citizen beneficiary records because she believes her sister committed fraud. My sister took my inhaler while I was struggling to breathe. I read the incident report. That does not expand my legal authority. I took a breath slowly enough that it did not turn into a cough. You are right, I said. I accused you before I had the evidence. Grant watched me, perhaps waiting for the word but. There was no but. I am sorry. Some of the tension left his shoulders. He turned the photograph of the signed report toward the window. Send me the exact public file where you found this. I will check whether the signature block matches an older document. Why would that matter? Scanned signatures can leave the same pixel pattern every time they are reused. A real signature usually does not. That was more useful than anything I could have forced from him. Before I left, Grant gave me a copy of the grant's public asset policy. Each machine carried 2 identifiers. The manufacturer's serial number belonged to the machine itself and was fixed to a plate near the rear housing. Clear Skies added its own asset sticker for internal tracking. A sticker could be peeled off and replaced. The manufacturer plate was harder to erase without leaving damage. Owen's red wax mark beside that plate created a third trail. The problem was finding another machine without invading someone's privacy. Cassidy had already solved that problem for me. For more than a year, she had filled the nonprofit's social media pages with photographs of grateful families. The posts used first names, interviews, and carefully staged images of children standing beside white purifiers. Some families had agreed to full promotional videos in exchange for helping the organization attract donations. I limited myself to people who had chosen to appear publicly. I did not search property records, medical information, school pages, or addresses. Even then, the work made me uncomfortable. Cassidy had turned their need into marketing. I did not want to turn it into my evidence board. One video appeared repeatedly in Clear Skies fundraising material. June Bell stood in a small living room with one arm around her 10-year-old son. The boy wore a dinosaur shirt and held a rescue inhaler against his chest. Beside them was a purifier with a blue ribbon tied around the handle. June told the camera Cassidy had delivered it during a night when wildfire smoke pushed the air quality index into the hazardous range. She did not make us fill out 10 more forms, June said in the video. She saw my son could not breathe safely, and she showed up. The donation certificate June held toward the camera named the same premium model advertised on the banner at the community center. The machine beside her did not look like that model. I contacted June through the public email she had used for a follow-up fundraiser. I told her I had questions about equipment distributed through Clear Skies and asked whether she would meet me in a public place. Her answer came 6 minutes later. "I know who you are. Leave my family out of your fight with Cassidy." I wrote back once. "I will. I am not asking about your son's medical history. I only want to verify the model printed on your donation certificate. You can say no." She did not respond until the next morning. We met at a coffee shop beside a grocery store. June arrived in work scrubs with her hair pulled into a loose knot. She did not order anything. She sat across from me and placed her phone on the table, as if prepared to record. "Cassidy told me you would come after the families next," she said. "I am not coming after you. She said you think we helped steal from the grant. I have never said that. She said you have been calling the county and accusing people." Grant had not told Cassidy about our conversation. Either someone else had, or Cassidy had anticipated the path I would follow. I opened my folder, then stopped. June's eyes moved to the columns and numbers on the first page. Her face hardened. "What is my son on that sheet?" she asked. "Household number 6? Asthma case 3? The question exposed exactly what I had done wrong. I had organized the public advertisements by date, machine model, and visible identifier. It made sense operationally. It also reduced June's worst nights to a row in my analysis. I closed the folder. "You are right," I said. She looked surprised. "I came here thinking that if I showed you enough discrepancies, you would understand why this matters. I did not ask what it cost you to let Cassidy film your family in the first place." June glanced toward the window. Cars passed through the smoky afternoon with their headlights on. "My son had been coughing for 2 days," she said. "Every store was sold out of filters. I had $40 until payday." Cassidy brought the machine after midnight. She sat on our floor until he fell asleep. That was the part numbers could not explain. Cassidy had not built her reputation from nothing. She had appeared when people were afraid. She remembered names, answered late calls, and knew exactly when gratitude would become loyalty. "What happened later does not erase that night," I said. June's gaze returned to me. "Then what do you want?" "I want to know whether the machine you received is the one written on your certificate. You do not have to show it to me. You can compare the plate yourself." She was silent for a while. Then she said, "You can look. You do not touch anything without asking." I agreed. June lived in a duplex near the edge of town. The purifier stood in her son's bedroom, beneath a window sealed with painter's tape against the smoke. It was running at the highest setting, producing a rough hum that changed pitch every few seconds. The Clear Skies sticker on the side looked newer than the plastic beneath it. One corner had lifted enough to reveal adhesive from an older label. I crouched without moving the machine. The manufacturer plate was fixed near the bottom of the rear housing. June held a lamp while I read the model and serial number aloud. The model was several years older than the one named on her certificate. The serial number was entirely different. A narrow red wax line marked the metal beside the plate. June lowered the lamp. What does that mean? It means your internal Clear Skies sticker says one thing, the manufacturer says another, and my father marked this machine when he checked the original shipment. Are you saying Cassidy gave us a used machine? I am saying the paperwork and the physical machine do not match. I do not yet know who changed which record. I asked permission before photographing the sticker, plate, red mark, and donation certificate together. June watched every movement. When I finished, she removed the filter cover herself. The filter was dark and heavily loaded. Flecks of silver and blue glitter clung to the fibers. A sweet, artificial scent rose from the housing, similar to the residue left by event fog and fragrance machines. June touched none of it. That smell has always been there, she said. Cassidy told me it came from the factory. It may be a clue, but it does not prove where the machine was used. You really do talk like a report. I am trying not to tell you more than I know. For the first time, one corner of her mouth moved. June replaced the cover and said she would think about contacting the county. I gave her Grant's office number. Not mine. 3 days later, smoke settled over Red Cedar again. I was at the motel answering work emails when June called. She was crying so hard that I could barely understand her. Her son had awakened wheezing before dawn. June had followed his action plan and taken him to the emergency room when his breathing did not improve. The purifier had been running, but a warning light appeared and the airflow weakened. The doctor did not say the machine caused it, June said quickly. I know smoke can do this, but it was supposed to protect his room. That was the whole reason we had it. She did not need me to turn uncertainty into certainty. The machine may have failed to provide the protection you were promised, I said. That is enough reason to have it inspected. June contacted Grant's office herself. 2 days after her son came home, a county grant inspector arrived at the duplex. June signed a voluntary transfer receipt. The inspector photographed the purifier from every side, recorded the manufacturer's serial, noted the asset tag, and sealed the power cord so no one could operate the machine before examination. I watched from the doorway because June asked me to be there. I did not carry it, open it, or direct the inspector. At the county facility, a technician removed the filter beneath a fixed camera. The filter went into a separate evidence bag with its own seal and receipt. The glitter and fragrance residue were documented as possible indicators of previous event use, not proof by themselves. That difference mattered. The following afternoon, I returned to Grant's office. He had opened the original county PDF containing his authentic signature and placed it beside the disputed Clear Skies report. At normal size, the signatures looked handwritten, magnified. The same rough edges appeared in the same places. A pale square of compression surrounded both images. Same scan, Grant said. Copied from a prior certification. Can you prove who inserted it? Not yet. We need the source file, account history, and metadata. I nodded. I owe you a better apology than the one I gave you. You already apologized. I also treated your refusal to break procedure as evidence against you. Grant folded his arms. You are not the first person to think urgency makes rules optional. It is usually my job to explain why it does not. He gave me a tired smile. Then remember your training. That evening, June sent me a message with no introduction. It contained a photograph downloaded from the public page of a wedding venue outside Red Cedar. The picture had been posted 14 months earlier. A bride and groom stood beneath cold fireworks while Cassidy's company logo appeared on equipment case near the stage. Behind the curtains, partially hidden by floral arrangements, stood a row of air purifiers. June had enlarged one machine until the image became grainy. The manufacturer plate remained visible. So did the red wax line beside it. She had placed her donation certificate next to the photograph and circled the matching serial number. The machine Cassidy claimed had been delivered new to June's son had been photographed at a paying client's wedding weeks before Clear Skies recorded it as distributed to her family. June's photograph did not prove that Cassidy had stolen 120 machines. It proved something narrower and more useful. A purifier listed as newly distributed to June's son had appeared at a paying event weeks earlier. I sent the image to Grant with the donation certificate, the manufacturer's serial number, and the photograph taken during the county inspection. I did not post it, forward it to reporters, or send it to Cassidy with a demand for an explanation. By then, I had learned that evidence became weaker every time anger persuaded someone to handle it carelessly. Grant called me the next afternoon. "The serial matches," he said. And I found Unit 47. I sat straighter at the motel desk. "What is it?" "A commercial storage unit outside Red Cedar." Clear Skies declared it as overflow storage in its grant asset plan. "So the county can inspect it?" "The grant administrator can inspect declared storage locations under the Asset Control Clause. That is not the same thing as the police searching private property." I understood the distinction. Clear Skies had voluntarily identified the unit as a place where restricted charitable property might be stored. In exchange for receiving public grant money, the nonprofit had agreed to allow documented inventory inspections after written notice. "How much notice?" I asked. 48 hours. "That gives Cassidy time to move everything." "It does. Can you inspect without warning?" "Not under this agreement unless there is an immediate safety condition or another legal basis. We do not get to rewrite the contract because someone may abuse its limits." Grant's answer frustrated me, but I could not call him obstructive for following the same process I wanted to rely on later. If the county ignored its own rules, Cassidy's attorney would use that mistake to attack everything found inside. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "The serial list you have compiled from public images and the machine June surrendered. Nothing else. Do not contact the storage company or go near the unit. I was not planning to break in." "You were willing to accuse me of fraud in my own office." "That is fair." The county grant administrator sent formal notice to Clear Skies, its board chair, Cassidy as executive director, and the storage facility. The notice identified Unit 47, cited the Asset Control Clause, and set an inspection for Friday morning. Cassidy responded within an hour. She emailed the board that she welcomed the review and had nothing to hide. Then Clear Skies posted a statement saying the county was performing a routine inspection after false allegations from a disgruntled relative. The inspection had not happened yet, but Cassidy had already decided what it meant. Grant forwarded me the statement with one line beneath it: "Do not respond." I did not. On Thursday afternoon, the manager of the storage facility called Grant's office. His name was Eli Navarro. He had managed the property for 6 years and handled access logs, gate records, tenant files, and camera retention requests. Grant asked whether I could join the call as the person who had supplied the serial information. Eli agreed, provided I understood he would not disclose more than the facility's policies and records allowed. "I received the inspection notice," Eli said. I checked the lease. Unit 47 is rented to Clear Skies Red Cedar, with Cassidy Price and Tessa Monroe listed as authorized users. "Have there been recent entries?" Grant asked. "Yes, the gate log shows Cassidy's code used twice this week, Monday evening and Wednesday morning." My grip tightened around the pen in my hand. The notice had gone out Tuesday. "Can you tell what left?" I asked. Eli did not answer immediately. "The exterior cameras show a box truck and several pallets," he said. "The camera does not see inside the unit. I cannot tell you what was on the pallets." "Do you still have the footage?" "Our policy retains gate and corridor footage for 90 days, unless there is a request to preserve it." I saved the relevant segment after receiving the county notice. That decision would matter months later. At the time, Eli sounded like a careful manager doing an ordinary part of his job. "Did Cassidy ask you to delete anything?" I asked. "No." Grant cut in before I could ask another question. "Please preserve the access logs and footage. The grant administrator will send the written request." Eli confirmed that he would. After the call, Grant reminded me that a truck leaving the property did not prove the pallets held grant machines. Cassidy's event company used decorations, fans, cables, haze equipment, and portable fixtures. Unit 47 might contain a mixture of nonprofit and private property. "I know," I said. You sound like you do not. I know what I can prove and what I suspect. That difference is going to keep you out of trouble. Friday morning arrived with a thin layer of smoke pressed against the hills. The storage facility stood behind a chain-link fence near the highway, 6 rows of beige metal doors divided by gravel lanes. I came as the reporting witness who could help identify the equipment models and red intake marks. I had no authority to direct the inspection. Grant was there with the county grant administrator. The chair of the Clear Skies board arrived carrying a copy of the notice. Eli met us at the gate with the lease file and a printed access log. Cassidy arrived last. She stepped out of her SUV wearing a navy jacket and an expression of patient concern. Tessa climbed out of the passenger side holding 2 binders against her chest. A reporter from the Red Cedar Chronicle parked behind them. Grant looked at Cassidy. "This is an administrative asset inspection." "I know," she said. "Transparency matters. I thought the community deserved to see that we have cooperated from the beginning." The reporter raised a camera. Cassidy had invited the press before anyone knew what the inspection would find. I believed that meant she expected the unit to help her, not hurt her. But expectation was not evidence. I kept the thought to myself. Tessa approached the grant administrator and opened one of the binders. "Unit 47 contains overflow event materials," she said. "Pipe and drape, unused filters, display boards, and seasonal supplies. The nonprofit rented it temporarily because the community center ran out of space." "Are grant-funded machines stored inside?" the administrator asked. "Not to my knowledge." Tessa's voice was steady, but she held the binder so tightly that the cover bowed beneath her fingers. Cassidy turned toward the reporter. "My sister has spent weeks suggesting that Clear Skies took equipment away from sick children," she said. "Today, the county will see what is actually here." I did not respond. The inspection was not a debate between sisters, no matter how badly Cassidy wanted to frame it that way. Eli unlocked the outer gate. Cassidy used her tenant key on Unit 47, while the grant administrator photographed the intact lock, door number, date, and time. The board chair signed the inspection sheet. Eli noted every person present. Then the metal door rolled upward. The unit was almost empty. Several folded backdrops leaned against one wall. Clear plastic bins held artificial flowers, extension cords, table linens, and lighting clamps. 3 cardboard boxes were labeled filters, but no purifiers stood behind them. The concrete floor told a different story. Clean rectangles interrupted the layer of dust, each the size of a shipping pallet. Parallel wheel tracks led from the back wall to the door. Along one side, fragments of blue and white stickers clung to the floor where adhesive labels had been cut or peeled away. The grant administrator entered first. Grant followed. Eli remained near the doorway, documenting access. I waited until I was invited inside. Cassidy stood beside the reporter. "As you can see," she said, "there are no stolen machines." The reporter photographed the empty floor. The administrator opened the boxes labeled filters. Some held new replacement filters. Others held used filters wrapped in thin plastic without maintenance tags or machine assignments. He photographed them but did not declare what they proved. Grant pointed toward the floor. "Were pallets removed after the inspection notice?" Cassidy looked at Eli instead of answering. Eli checked his printed log. "A box truck exited Wednesday at 9:17 in the morning. We had an event delivery," Cassidy said. "This is a storage facility. Property moves in and out." "What property?" the administrator asked. "Equipment belonging to Cassidy Events and Air." Why was private company equipment stored in a unit declared to the grant as nonprofit overflow storage? "We share certain operational costs. That is not illegal." The board chair turned toward Tessa. "Is the nonprofit paying this lease?" Tessa looked down at her binder. The payment allocation changed during the summer. That was not the question. Cassidy stepped between them without physically moving. She did it with her voice. "This is exactly why Jocelyn's accusations are dangerous. Normal administrative arrangements are being treated like crimes because she came home angry at our family." I could feel the reporter's camera shift toward me. I had spent years believing silence always made the liar stronger. That morning, silence protected the inspection from becoming Cassidy's family spectacle. The grant administrator completed a preliminary inventory. He recorded the absence of the machines, the used filters, the sticker fragments, the wheel tracks, and the recent access logs. He did not call the police or accuse Cassidy of theft. He stated that the county would compare the findings against the nonprofit's declared inventory and delivery records. Cassidy faced the reporter before the unit door had fully closed. "The county found no hidden purifiers," she said. "I hope Jocelyn will now stop wasting resources that should be helping families." By lunchtime, the Chronicle posted a photograph of Cassidy standing in front of the empty unit. The headline read, "County Inspection Finds No Missing Macanes in Charity Storage." The article mentioned wheel tracks and pending records review in the 7th paragraph. Most readers never reached it. My employer called that afternoon. The Relief Network's compliance director spoke carefully. She said no one was accusing me of misconduct, but the public dispute created an appearance problem. Until the county review concluded, I was to remove myself from every project, vendor discussion, or regional planning call connected to Red Cedar or Clear Skies. "I have never handled their grant," I said. "I know. This protects you and the organization." It also gave Cassidy another sentence she could use. By evening, she had posted that my own employer had removed me from the matter. June called after seeing it. "They found nothing," she said. "They found an empty unit that held pallets 2 days earlier. Cassidy says those were wedding decorations. She may be telling the truth about some of them." June was quiet. I did not blame her for wavering. Cassidy had once arrived at her house after midnight with a machine when no one else had come. I was asking June to accept that the same person might also have placed an old device in her son's bedroom and kept the better one earning money elsewhere. "Did I make the county waste its time?" she asked. "No, your machine still does not match your certificate. That did not change because Unit 47 was empty. But you thought the machines would be there." "Yes." Admitting that felt better than reshaping the morning into a partial victory. "I was wrong about what we would find," I said. "I do not think I was wrong about what passed through that unit." After the call, I drove nowhere. The doctor had cleared me to drive 2 days after the attack, but exhaustion had returned with the steroid taper, and I knew better than to confuse movement with progress. I stayed at the motel and organized what remained. The access log established that Cassidy entered before the notice and again after it. The camera showed pallets leaving. The floor showed recent storage. The fragments showed labels had been removed. None of those facts identified the machines on the truck. The missing link was the destination. Grant called at 6:40. "Eli found something," he said. I returned to the storage facility with Grant's permission. The unit remained under the control of Clear Skies, but the county had requested that Eli preserve any loose documents connected to the inspection. Eli met us in the office rather than opening the unit again. He placed a clear document sleeve on the desk. "During the inspection, I noticed paper under the rear edge of a pallet base that had been left against the wall," he said. "I did not pull it out until the grant administrator told me to collect loose records in place. He was present when I removed it." Inside the sleeve was the torn lower half of a delivery manifest. The top portion, including the full customer name, was missing. The remaining section listed the date, the truck number, and 24 units identified by model rather than complete serial number. At the bottom, the destination field remained intact. Hotel Alder Ridge. The delivery date was Wednesday, the morning after Cassidy received the inspection notice. Grant called the hotel from Eli's office. He spoke first with the front desk, then the operations manager. Cassidy Events and Air was supplying air purifiers, fans, haze equipment, and lighting support for a large wedding scheduled the following evening. The operations manager checked the service corridor loading log. Cassidy's truck had delivered 24 purifiers at 10:48 Wednesday morning. Grant explained that some of the equipment might be restricted charitable property subject to a county-administered grant audit. He did not demand access. He asked whether the manager requested the grant administrator's information and called back 20 minutes later. The hotel would allow the county auditor and Grant to inspect the vendor equipment in the service corridor before it entered the ballroom. The hotel would preserve its loading log and relevant security footage. Cassidy's company would be notified through the formal process. Then Grant looked at me. "The auditor wants you there to identify where the manufacturer plates are located and recognize Owen's intake marks," he said. "You will remain under supervision. You will not touch anything unless instructed." "I understand." If the serial numbers do not match, we document that too. I understand that as well. The empty unit had given Cassidy a headline. The torn manifest gave us an address. The following afternoon, before hundreds of wedding guests entered Hotel Alder Ridge, the county would finally look behind the new asset stickers Cassidy had placed on the machines. Hotel Alder Ridge had stopped Cassidy's equipment in the service corridor before it reached the ballroom. When I arrived, the wedding staff were still arranging white roses around the entrance. Through the closed ballroom doors came the muted pulse of a sound check and the clatter of silverware being placed on tables. The service corridor smelled of floor polish, cut flowers, and the sweet residue of the haze machines waiting on black carts. 24 air purifiers stood in 2 rows beneath fluorescent lights. The hotel's operations manager, Denise Park, had printed the loading log and marked each unit as temporarily held pending the county review. The county grant administrator stood beside Grant with a camera, evidence labels, and a copy of the Clear Skies intake manifest. I signed a form acknowledging that I was present only to identify the location of manufacturer plates and the red intake marks my father had made. I was not allowed to handle the machines. I did not need to. The first purifier had a glossy Cassidy Events and Air sticker, covering the place where a Clear Skies asset tag would normally sit. The sticker looked new. The plastic housing beneath it carried shallow scratches from an older label. I pointed toward the lower rear panel. The manufacturer's serial plate is below that vent. The auditor crouched, photographed the entire machine, then moved closer for the plate. He read the serial number aloud while Grant checked it against the original intake manifest. It matched. Beside the plate was a narrow red line made with wax pencil. The auditor placed a removable evidence marker near the machine without attaching anything to it. He recorded the date, time, hotel location, vendor, manufacturer, serial, and visible asset tag. We repeated the process with the next unit. That serial matched too. By the 6th machine, Denise had stopped pretending this might be a misunderstanding. She stood with her arms folded, watching Grant move down the intake list. Cassidy's company told us these belonged to their private rental fleet, she said. That may be true for some units, Grant replied. We are documenting only what the original county records show. 3 of the 24 machines were legitimate Cassidy Events property purchased before the grant. Their serial numbers did not appear on the Clear Skies manifest, and there were no red marks beside their plates. The remaining 21 were grant-funded machines. Each one carried a new private company sticker. Each one still carried the manufacturer's serial that connected it to Clear Skies. 19 had Owen's red intake mark. On 2, someone had scraped the area beside the plate, leaving dull streaks in the plastic. The auditor photographed those marks as possible tampering but did not declare who had caused them. I felt no rush of victory. The machines were real, but so were the families who had received older replacements while these units cleaned smoke and perfume from luxury ballrooms. One of the purifiers had been assigned to June's household in the ledger. Another had been listed as delivered to an assisted living resident who appeared in one of Cassidy's fundraising posts. A third was supposedly operating in a preschool during hazardous air days. Instead, all 3 were waiting behind a wedding hall, where the floral budget probably exceeded what June earned in a year. The ballroom doors opened briefly. A coordinator stepped into the corridor and asked Denise how long the inspection would take. We have guests arriving in 3 hours, she said. Denise looked at the rows of machines. Find another vendor. The coordinator stared at her. Tonight? Tonight? The door closed again. That was when Cassidy arrived. She came through the loading entrance with a man in a charcoal suit carrying a leather portfolio. I recognized him from Helen's preservation correspondence as the attorney for Cassidy Events and Air. Cassidy wore a cream jacket and low heels, dressed for a business meeting rather than an equipment delivery. Her gaze moved across the evidence markers, the auditor's camera, and the loading log in Denise's hand. Then she saw me. You brought my sister into a commercial inspection? She asked Grant. The grant administrator requested her assistance identifying intake marks, he said. She has not touched the equipment. Cassidy looked at the auditor. Those machines are part of a lawful social enterprise program approved by the nonprofit's former inventory coordinator. My father, I said. Her attorney raised one hand. We should keep this focused on documents rather than family allegations. That would be useful, Grant said. Please provide the written approval authorizing restricted grant assets to be transferred to a private company. Cassidy did not hesitate. Her attorney opened the portfolio and removed a clear folder. We anticipated that request. He handed the folder to the grant administrator, not to me. Inside was a 6-page agreement dated the previous November. The title read, Temporary Equipment Utilization and Revenue Sharing Plan. The document authorized Cassidy Events and Air to use up to 40 Clear Skies purifiers during the low smoke season. Rental proceeds were supposed to be deposited into the nonprofit's operating account and restricted to filter replacement, maintenance, and community distribution. The machines were required to return to Clear Skies before July 1st. It was now late August. Smoke covered red cedar. 21 of those machines were preparing to work a wedding. Grant read the conditions twice. "Where is the written approval from the county grant administrator?" he asked. Cassidy's attorney answered. The nonprofit believed it had internal authority to generate supporting revenue. The grant agreement specifically prohibits commercial rental without county approval. This arrangement was intended to preserve the charitable program, not enrich a private party. The auditor looked at the rows of Cassidy Events stickers. Then why were the machines relabeled as private company assets? Cassidy stepped forward. Because hotel clients require a single vendor inventory system. The manufacturer's serial numbers were never removed. "That does not answer the question," Grant said. Cassidy turned to me instead. "You think you found a crime because Dad tried to keep Clear Skies alive? I have not called the agreement a crime. You have implied worse for weeks. I said the machines and records did not match. They do not." Her voice sharpened. The nonprofit could not keep replacing filters while donors expected everything for free. We created rental revenue during the months when the machines were sitting idle. They were not sitting idle in August. The wedding contract was signed months ago. Then you should have returned the machines and supplied the hotel with your own equipment. You have no idea what it cost to keep that program running after you left. She had shifted the argument from whether she violated the agreement to whether I had earned the right to question her. I did not follow her there. "How much rental income went back to Clear Skies?" I asked. Her attorney answered before she could. "Financial allocation is under review." "That means you do not want to say." "It means this corridor is not an accounting deposition." The county auditor closed the folder. "The document will be preserved and compared against bank records, board minutes, grant reports, and the nonprofit ledger." Cassidy looked at him. "You are treating an emergency solution like theft." Grant pointed toward the machine assigned to June. "That unit was recorded as distributed to a child with respiratory risk while it was earning money for your company. We provided that household with a functioning purifier, an older model with a different manufacturer serial. It still worked. The inspection showed reduced airflow and overdue maintenance." Cassidy's face remained composed, but she began speaking faster. "Do you think filters buy themselves? Do you think staff work for free? Clear Skies had one grant and an entire town expecting us to solve wildfire season? Dad understood that. He approved the plan because he lived here and saw what we were dealing with." I looked at the last page of the agreement through the clear folder. Owen Price was typed beneath one signature line. The signature above it looked like my father's. I knew the long downward stroke in the O. I knew the way he crossed the P too high. I had seen it on birthday cards, school forms, and the first car loan he co-signed for me when I was 22. Tessa Monroe's signature appeared as witness. "This is a scan," I said. Cassidy heard the doubt in my voice. "It is a scan of the signed original. Dad kept the original in the Clear Skies records." "Where is it now?" "In nonprofit storage. Unit 40. 7 was almost empty." Her eyes held mine. "Ask him." The words were quiet enough that the others could continue reviewing the equipment, but they were meant to reach only me. "You have spent weeks presenting Dad as a helpless man," I silenced. She continued. "He helped create this plan. If he approved 40 machines, that does not explain 120. It started with 40. And the revenue? We used it to keep everything from collapsing. Your company or the nonprofit? Both." That answer was closer to the truth than anything she had said publicly. Cassidy glanced toward her attorney, but he did not stop her. She lowered her voice again. "Do you know why Dad agreed?" Cassidy Events had already expanded. We had trucks, warehouse leases, staff contracts, and loans. Clear Skies needed the same equipment during smoke season. The family tied the two operations together because it was efficient. The grant prohibited that. "Real life is not one of your compliance manuals." What did you use as collateral? Her expression changed. The attorney stepped closer. Financial details concerning third parties are outside the scope of this inspection. Cassidy ignored him. The house, she said. The words seemed to alter the temperature of the corridor. What about the house? I asked. Mom and Dad signed a home equity line before his stroke. The company needed collateral to expand the fleet. How much? $185,000. I did the numbers automatically. My parents' house was worth around $460,000. They still owed approximately $95,000 on the original mortgage. A home equity line secured by the property did not mean the bank would take it the next morning, but if Cassidy's company stopped paying and defaulted, the house could eventually be forced into sale or foreclosure. Both of them signed? I asked. Yes. Dad signed the deed of trust too. Before the stroke? 4 months before. Cassidy watched me absorb it. That is what you are actually tearing apart, she said. If the hotels cancel, the company loses revenue. If the company defaults, Mom and Dad lose the house. You are not rescuing them, Jocelyn. You are making sure they pay for trusting me. I wanted to dismiss it as another threat. The numbers would not let me. Cassidy had built a system in which exposing her could damage the same people who had protected her. That did not make the scheme lawful. It made the family's motive for hiding it concrete. Did they know you expanded from 40 machines to 120? I asked. Cassidy's jaw tightened. That is not what we are discussing. It is exactly what we are discussing. Her attorney moved between us. This conversation is over. The county auditor instructed the hotel to keep the 21 matched machines out of service until ownership and grant restrictions were resolved. Denise signed the hold acknowledgement. The hotel arranged replacement equipment from another vendor and preserved the loading logs, corridor footage, and Cassidy's vendor file. Cassidy stood near the loading entrance while her attorney made calls. She looked less like a local hero then. Not defeated, but cornered enough to show how much calculation usually sat behind her warmth. Grant came to my side. The agreement changes the investigation, he said. It proves Dad approved the first transfer. It proves he signed a document authorizing up to 40 units under specific conditions. It does not prove the county approved it, that the conditions were followed, or that he authorized the later expansion. I know. Do you? I understood why he asked. Until that moment, I had treated Owen as the man who discovered Cassidy's scheme and tried to call me home. The signature forced another possibility into the story. He had not merely found the door open. He had helped unlock it. Denise returned with a tablet containing Cassidy Events' vendor profile. She wanted the auditor to identify which digital materials the hotel needed to preserve. The profile included contracts, insurance certificates, equipment lists, and a promotional reel submitted when Cassidy applied to become a preferred vendor. Denise opened the video. Cassidy appeared on the screen walking through a finished ballroom, while a voiceover praised her company's ability to manage haze, fragrance, air circulation, and guest comfort. The footage had been recorded 7 months earlier. Behind her stood rows of the same premium purifiers. The camera passed close enough to show their rear panels. I paused the video and pointed toward a red mark beside one plate. Can you enlarge that without changing the file? I asked. Denise handed the tablet to the auditor. He used the hotel's system to view the original upload while a screen recording documented the process. The serial number became visible. Grant checked the Clear Skies intake manifest. The machine had been entered in the nonprofit ledger as distributed to a household 4 months after the video was recorded. Another machine appeared in the next shot. Then another. The promotional reel was not proof of every rental, but it placed grant-funded machines inside Cassidy's commercial operation before the ledger claimed they had gone to families. Cassidy had submitted the video herself to win hotel contracts. The auditor sent immediate preservation requests for the original vendor upload, account logs, metadata, related contracts, and any archived versions held by the hotel's platform. Denise confirmed the file would be locked against routine deletion. Cassidy watched from the other end of the corridor. She did not ask what we had found. Her attorney had already seen the paused frame. When I finally returned to the motel, the sun had disappeared behind smoke. My lungs were tired, my hands still shook slightly from the medication, and the image of Dad's signature followed me into the room. A message from Mara waited on my phone. She said Owen had seen a copy of the agreement through his independent attorney. He had asked her to help him compose one sentence without anyone supplying the words. The message read, "I signed it. Ask me before Cassidy tells you why." My father had not asked me to believe he was innocent. He had asked me to let him explain before Cassidy did it for him. I met Owen and Mara at the rehabilitation clinic the morning after the hotel inspection. Grant had provided a copy of the temporary equipment agreement to Owen's independent attorney, who gave permission for us to review it together. I brought the document, printed stills from the hotel's promotional video, and a copy of the original intake manifest. I also brought too much anger to fit inside the room. Dad sat at the same table where he had typed "Cassidy moved air." His tablet rested on its stand. Mara had placed a blank notepad, picture cards, and a sheet of common financial terms within reach. I set the agreement in front of him. "You signed this." Dad pressed yes. "You authorized Cassidy to take Grant machines." He pressed yes again. "How many did you know about?" His fingers moved toward the number board, but I continued before he could answer. 40, according to the agreement." "Did you know she expanded it? Did you know she was replacing those machines with old units? Did you know Mom signed the home equity line?" Dad lifted one hand. I mistook it for an attempt to answer and supplied another question. "When did you realize the money was not going back to Clear Skies?" His face tightened. He looked at Mara, then closed the tablet cover. The click of the case sounded louder than my voice had. "Dad, we do not have time for this." Mara looked directly at me. "He does. Cassidy is moving equipment and rewriting records. And Owen is trying to tell you what happened. He has already admitted signing the agreement. That is one fact. You asked 6 questions in less than a minute. I need a timeline. You need his timeline." I stood and moved toward the window. Outside, a delivery van crossed the clinic parking lot. The sky had cleared slightly, but smoke still softened the edges of the hills. "I am the one trying to protect him," I said. Mara lowered her voice. "Protection does not give you ownership of his answer." The words hurt because they were accurate. Cassidy dismissed Dad's communication as confusion. Mom used his slow speech as permission to manage his access to everyone else. I had told myself I was different because I wanted the truth. Yet I had walked into the room and treated him like a damaged storage device I needed to extract before the battery died. I returned to the table. "I am sorry," I said. "I made this about how quickly I needed the information." Dad did not reopen the tablet. Mara pointed toward the hallway. "Give him a few minutes." I left the room and sat beneath a framed poster about stroke recovery. The clinic smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Somewhere beyond the wall, a therapist repeated the days of the week with a patient who kept losing Wednesday. For most of my life, I had equated speed with competence. Emergencies rewarded the person who could make a decision before everyone else understood the problem. That skill had kept supply lines moving during fires and floods. It had also made patients feel like failure. Mara joined me after 10 minutes. "Owen has aphasia," she said. "That affects language. It does not automatically erase reasoning, memory, or decision-making capacity." "I understand that." "You understand the sentence. You are not behaving as though you believe it." I looked down at my hands. Mara explained that Dad had completed a formal evaluation after his stroke. He could understand ordinary financial concepts, recognize consequences, express preferences, and make decisions when information was presented in manageable pieces. He struggled to retrieve words and produce complex speech quickly. Fatigue made it worse. "Your mother has durable financial power of attorney," Mara said. "That allows her to handle bills, banking, and specified financial tasks under the document. It does not make Owen her property. It does not mean she can rewrite his wishes in areas where he still has capacity." "When did he sign it?" "After the stroke, with an attorney and an independent capacity assessment." "Why would he give her that power if she was protecting Cassidy?" "You will have to ask him." This time I heard the warning before I answered. When I returned, Dad had reopened the tablet. He had also turned the agreement, so the signature page faced him. I sat down and asked one question. "How many machines did you authorize?" Dad touched 4, then 0. 40. He pressed yes. Mara placed 3 picture cards on the table: summer, winter, and wildfire smoke. Dad selected winter. The machines were supposed to be rented only during the low smoke season. He pressed yes. I waited. He typed slowly. Back by July. The agreement required exactly that. The units were supposed to return before wildfire risk increased. Did rental money have to go back to Clear Skies? Yes. Did it? Dad selected some, then typed, first. Only the early payments had reached the nonprofit. Using the manifest, Dad showed us how the original shipment had been processed. Months before Cassidy's rental plan existed, he had inspected each machine as it arrived. He checked the manufacturer plate, matched it to the county list, and placed a short red wax line beside the serial number. The marks had never been secret codes. They were simply his habit. Cassidy later discovered that the habit made the machines easier for him to recognize, even after someone changed the Clear Skies asset stickers. How did 40 become 120? I asked. Dad opened a photograph of warehouse shelves. He selected one row, then another, then a third. He typed one word, demo. Cassidy's company received more hotel and event contracts than her private fleet could supply. She moved additional machines without amending the agreement or seeking county approval. The nonprofit ledger continued listing many of those units as distributed or awaiting household delivery. What did families receive? Dad selected the picture for old, then pointed toward the screenshot of June's machine. Used units? Yes. Did you know immediately? No. He found a date on the calendar function of his tablet. The date was 6 months before his stroke. A mother had emailed Clear Skies after a smoke emergency. Her paperwork named a premium purifier, but the machine in her home had weak airflow and an outdated filter. She was not June. The complaint had happened months before I returned. Owen had compared the serial number in her photograph with the intake manifest. The premium machine assigned to that household appeared in a video from a corporate event. He showed us the email. The subject line read, "Equipment does not match certificate." Beneath it was a reply from Owen to Cassidy and Tessa. "Stop transfers. Needful inventory." The email ended there. I looked at him. What happened to the message? Dad selected delete. You deleted your own warning? Yes. The answer sat between us without an excuse. Why? He opened a photograph of the Price house. Then he selected a bank icon, a red warning symbol, and the picture for fear. The company had already begun missing payments. The home equity line was secured against the house. If the contracts collapsed immediately, Owen believed the lender would move against the property. He also knew the county might hold him responsible for approving the first unauthorized rental plan. You were afraid of losing the house and being investigated. Yes. So you deleted the email? Yes. What did you do instead? Dad typed, "Fix inside." He had confronted Cassidy privately and demanded that she return the machines, correct the ledger, and replace the units given to families. Cassidy promised she could repair the problem within 60 days if the company completed its existing contracts. Owen agreed to keep the matter inside the family. It was the same decision he had made 11 years earlier. Back then, the amount was small enough for him to call it a mistake. This time, the scale was larger, the paperwork more complicated, and the people harmed farther away from our dining table. The principle had not changed. He protected Cassidy first and expected truth to wait. You called me home after your stroke, I said. You wanted me to expose what you helped hide. Dad's fingers hovered above the screen. You asked me to do the thing you stopped me from doing in 2013. He pressed yes. Anger rose so quickly that my face became hot. You let me leave believing I was the problem. You watched Cassidy build a public reputation on the same behavior you had taught her, would always be forgiven. Then, when you could not fix it quietly, you sent me a picture and expected me to finish the job. Dad lowered his eyes. Mara did not interrupt me. She only watched to make sure I was speaking to him, not over him. I almost died on that floor, I said. Mom watched her keep the inhaler. Cassidy used my illness because she knew both of you had spent years calling my reactions excessive. Dad pressed both hands against the table. His mouth moved, but no clear word came. I did not complete it for him. He opened the tablet and typed for nearly a minute. I made her safe from truth. The electronic voice was flat. The meaning was not. I stood so abruptly that the chair legs scraped the floor. I need to leave. Mara nodded. Tell him whether you are coming back. I had not planned to. At that moment, I wanted Dad to feel the same uncertainty he had left me with for 11 years. But anger did not give me the right to use silence as punishment. I am going outside for 20 minutes, I said. Then I will decide whether I can continue today. Dad pressed yes. I walked around the clinic twice. My lungs had recovered enough for the movement, though cold air still made the center of my chest feel raw. I called Helen and told her what Dad had admitted. She did not tell me to forgive him because he was cooperating now. His admission strengthens the timeline, she said. It also exposes him to consequences. He knows. Make sure he continues to know. Cooperation is not immunity. That mattered to me. I did not want revenge badly enough to rewrite Dad as an innocent old man manipulated by Cassidy. He had opened the door. He had deleted the first warning. He had chosen the house over families who trusted the nonprofit. When I returned, Dad was still at the table. I sat across from him. I am not promising forgiveness, I said. He selected, understand. I will not hide your signature. Understand. I will not tell investigators that Cassidy deceived you from the beginning. Understand. If you want this exposed, you have to tell the whole timeline yourself, with your own attorney, not through me. Dad's hand shook slightly as he typed. Yes. I looked at the agreement again, then at the deleted email he had saved as a screenshot before removing it from the Clear Skies account. How do you want to tell it? That question changed the room? Until then, I had asked what happened, when it happened, and what Cassidy did. I had not asked what Dad wanted to do with his own responsibility. He opened a blank page and began building a statement with Mara's help. She did not choose the content. She broke the process into smaller tasks, offered word options when he requested them, and read each completed sentence back to him for confirmation. Owen wanted an independent lawyer, not the attorney Cassidy's company used. He wanted a new capacity review attached to any financial decision. He wanted the original agreement, intake manifest, screenshots, and deleted warning email turned over. He also wanted Marlene's financial power of attorney revoked. That decision required more than pressing a button. Dad's attorney would review the document, confirm his capacity for the decision, notify Marlene, and arrange new banking instructions. Until then, Mom still had authority to pay bills and handle accounts listed in the power of attorney. She did not have authority to stop Dad from speaking to his lawyer. By the time we finished, evening light had faded from the clinic windows. Mara walked Dad to the transport entrance while I gathered the documents. My phone vibrated. The message came from an attorney representing Marlene. The letter stated that I did not have permission to enter the Price property without the consent of an owner and that any future visit should be arranged through counsel. It did not contain a court seal, a case number, or a judge's signature. It was not a restraining order. It was a warning designed to sound like one. A second notification appeared before I finished reading. Cassidy had posted another video. The clip came from the beginning of my meeting with Dad. Someone had recorded through the partly open therapy room door before Mara closed it. The video showed me standing over the table holding the agreement and saying, "You signed this," followed by my rapid questions. It ended before I apologized. Cassidy's caption read, "This is how my sister treats our father after his stroke. We are taking legal steps to protect him." The comments began filling with the same words as before. Abuse, harassment, control. For several minutes, shame competed with anger because the footage showed something real. I had pressured Dad. Cassidy had not invented that part. She had only removed everything that happened after it. Mara returned and saw the video on my screen. "The clinic will preserve the hallway cameras and investigate who recorded it," she said. I gave Cassidy the footage she needed. "You made a mistake. Then you corrected your behavior. The public will not see that." Owen did. Dad was still near the exit. Mara asked whether he wanted to return to the room. He nodded. When he sat down again, I showed him Cassidy's post. I did not tell him how to respond. He watched the clip once. Then he opened his tablet. His first message instructed Mara to contact his attorney and proceed with the power of attorney review. His second message took longer. He erased it twice before settling on 4 words. The tablet spoke them into the quiet room. "Tell all." Me too. My father's 4 words did not repair what he had done, but they changed what happened next. Tell all. Me too. He was not asking me to protect him from Cassidy. He was refusing to let me construct a cleaner version of the truth on his behalf. 2 days later, Cassidy launched a campaign called Stand with Cassidy. The promotional video opened with photographs of her delivering filters during wildfire season, carrying boxes into senior apartments, and sitting beside frightened parents in emergency shelters. Then the music softened, and Cassidy appeared alone inside the Clear Skies office. My family is facing an attack from someone who has not lived in Red Cedar for 11 years, she said. I will not allow personal resentment to destroy the work this community built together. She never mentioned the 21 grant-funded machines found at Hotel Alder Ridge. She did not mention that June's certificate named a different model than the machine placed in her son's bedroom. She described the county audit as a paperwork review caused by confusion between nonprofit and social enterprise equipment. The camera widened. My mother sat beside her. Marlene wore a gray cardigan and held one of Dad's old photographs in her lap. It showed the 4 of us standing outside the Price House before I left Red Cedar. Cassidy had been 20. I had been 27 and still believed silence could keep the family intact. Cassidy was the daughter who stayed, Mom said. She cared for us when Owen had his stroke. She kept this community breathing while other people built lives somewhere else. Now she is being punished for doing everything she could to save her family and her hometown. The donation link appeared beneath them. By evening, Stand with Cassidy had raised more than $23,000 for legal expenses and continued clean air operations. Local businesses reposted the video. A pastor who had once thanked Cassidy for delivering sitters shared it with a message about standing beside people who served quietly. Cassidy had never served quietly. She had simply made sure the camera framed her service before it framed its cost. I did not post a response. Helen advised me that anything I said publicly could affect the audit, potential civil claims, and the preservation of evidence. More importantly, I had no interest in entering a contest where Cassidy controlled the emotional rules. She could ask the town whether it loved her. The evidence would ask what she had done. My employer called the following morning. The compliance director and general counsel joined the video meeting. My supervisor sat in a separate window, looking more uncomfortable than either of them. We want to clarify your status, the general counsel said. You are not being disciplined. Your position, salary, and benefits remain unchanged. I waited for the rest. Effective immediately, you are formally recused from all work connected to Red Cedar, Clear Skies, the county grant, and any vendor appearing in the investigation. I have never accessed Clear Skies records through our systems. We know. This is intended to make that boundary explicit. The written recusal prohibited me from using my organization's databases, analysts, staff time, vendor contacts, letterhead, or internal communication tools for anything connected to my family's case. If Red Cedar appeared in a regional planning call, I had to leave that portion of the meeting. Cassidy posted about the decision before lunch. Even Jocelyn's own organization has removed her from the case, she wrote. That was not what the letter said, but it was close enough to travel faster than a correction. For several minutes, I stared at my closed laptop and felt the old impulse to prove that I was still useful. My career had taught me how to trace assets, identify broken supply chains, and notice when an inventory report had been designed to conceal movement. Now I could not use the tools I trusted most. Helen called before I could convince myself that the restriction was unfair. This protects your job, she said. It also prevents Cassidy from claiming you used institutional power against a local nonprofit. It slows everything down. Yes, I hate that answer. You are allowed to hate it. You are not allowed to ignore it. I created a new rule for myself that afternoon. Every document related to Cassidy went through Helen Grant, the grant administrator, or the appropriate investigator. I kept a personal timeline, using only information lawfully provided to me. I did not contact vendors through work. I did not ask colleagues for favors. I did not search databases simply because I knew how. Cassidy wanted proof that I considered myself above the rules. I refused to provide it. June did not have the protection of a compliance department. Someone taped a printed copy of the Stand with Cassidy donation page to her locker at the assisted living facility where she worked. Across Cassidy's face, someone had written, "She helped your child." At the grocery store, A woman June knew from elementary school asked why she had turned against the person who came to her house during the smoke emergency. Another parent removed June from a local support group and accused her of endangering future donations. June called me from her car during a break. "I cannot keep explaining this to everyone," she said. "You do not have to. If I stop cooperating, what happens to the machine? The county already has it. The serial discrepancy and inspection results remain part of the review. So you do not need me. Your certificate and your account of how the machine was delivered matter. But whether you continue is your decision." She was quiet long enough for me to hear cars passing behind her. "Cassidy says you are using me to destroy her. I asked to inspect the plate because your family appeared in a public campaign. You allowed it, and later you surrendered the machine voluntarily. Those are the facts. I will not tell you what you owe me. What do you think I should do?" The question tempted me. I wanted June to stand in front of every person defending Cassidy and describe the warning light on the purifier while her son struggled to breathe. I wanted the town to understand that gratitude did not turn a false certificate into a true one, but wanting her testimony did not give me ownership of it. "I think you should decide what you can live with after this is over," I said, "not what makes my case easier." June let out a tired breath. The following week, she contacted Grant through her own attorney. She signed a statement confirming the certificate, the delivery date, the model she received, Cassidy's instructions about the filter, and the fact that she had never agreed to accept a refurbished substitute. She did not speak about Cassidy's personality. She did not call her evil. She described the machine. That was enough. Grant's document review produced its first formal finding in early December. Helen and I met him at the county office with a forensic document analyst named Priya Shah. Priya displayed 3 PDFs on a large monitor. One was an old emergency supply certification Grant had unquestionably signed. The other 2 were Clear Skies reports, claiming that premium purifiers had been distributed and inspected. At normal size, all 3 signatures looked authentic. Priya enlarged the first letter of Grant's last name. A tiny square gap appeared where 2 pixels failed to connect. The same gap appeared in every disputed document. A faint compression shadow surrounded the signature image in the exact same dimensions. Even a small dark speck near the final stroke repeated in the same place. "A handwritten signature will vary," Priya explained. "These do not. They are the same image inserted into multiple files." "Can you identify who inserted it?" I asked. "We can identify the document history currently available to us." The original certification had been uploaded from Grant's county account more than a year earlier. The disputed forms had been created from a template associated with the Clear Skies Administrative Office. The metadata showed the files were edited and exported through an account assigned to Cassidy's executive office. That did not prove Cassidy's hands were on the keyboard. An assistant or contractor could have used the account. Priya stated the limitation before I asked. Grant had already signed an affidavit confirming he had not approved the transfers, had not signed the disputed distribution reports, and had never authorized commercial use of the Grant assets. "I should have reviewed the attachments more closely when the quarterly summaries came in," he said after Priya closed the files. "You were sent completed reports with your signature already on them. My office administered the grant. I still missed it." There was no self-pity in his voice. He was doing what Dad had finally chosen to do, separating responsibility from total blame. I understood then why Cassidy's version of events spread so easily. She offered everyone a simple role: hero, jealous sister, confused father, ungrateful mother, careless bookkeeper. The truth required people to admit they could be deceived and still have missed chances to stop it. Owen revoked Marlene's financial power of attorney 6 days later. The process took place in a private conference room at his lawyer's office. A capacity specialist had evaluated him again that morning using written choices, visual aids, and extra response time. The conclusion was specific. Owen understood the purpose of the power of attorney, the financial tasks it covered, the consequences of revoking it, and the alternatives available. I attended because Dad asked me to, not because I controlled the decision. His attorney reviewed each page slowly. Owen selected a professional fiduciary to manage bill payments and banking while the audit continued. I was not appointed. Neither was Cassidy. When the attorney asked whether anyone had pressured him to revoke Marlene's authority, Dad typed his answer himself. No, I waited too long. The signed revocation was notarized, delivered to Marlene, and sent to the banks named in the original document. The fiduciary began changing account access and reviewing recent transfers. Mom arrived at the office less than an hour later. She did not enter the conference room. She stood in the lobby holding the notice and demanded to see me. "You did this," she said. "Dad did." He could barely read those papers. His attorney and the capacity specialist disagree. "You put the idea in his head." I looked through the glass wall toward Dad. He was seated beside Mara, waiting for transportation. He could see us, but he could not hear every word. "I suggested an independent attorney," I said. "He chose the revocation. You have always known how to make control look respectable." The accusation struck close enough to sting. "I did try to speak for him," I said. "He stopped me. I listened." Mom's face changed when I admitted it. She had expected denial. "This family will have nothing left when you finish," she said. "That depends on what was already taken before I came home. You think a house is just an asset on a page because you never had to keep one? The house belongs to you and Dad. Cassidy's company used it as collateral. To keep people employed. To keep her contracts alive. You do not know what it means to stay when everyone depends on you." "No," I said. "I know what it means to leave when staying requires me to lie." Mom folded the revocation notice and placed it in her purse with deliberate care. Then she walked past Dad without looking at him. He watched the door close behind her. His fingers rested on the tablet, but he did not type anything. I sat beside him. After a while, he selected the word, "sad." I did not tell him he had made the right decision. Correct decisions could still hurt. I placed my hand on the arm of his chair and waited until his transport arrived. That evening, a woman called from an unfamiliar number. "Is this Jocelyn Price?" "Yes." "This is Tessa Monroe." Her voice was low and uneven. I could hear a heater running in the background, and the hollow sound of traffic outside a motel window. "I need your lawyer's contact information," she said. "Why?" "Cassidy gave me a statement to sign. It says the serial mismatches came from my bookkeeping, that I reused Grant's signature by mistake, and that she relied on the reports I prepared." "Did you do those things?" "I changed dates. I kept old asset tags in the ledger after machines had been moved. I knew the reports were misleading." She did not ask me to call her innocent. "I did not create the rental plan," she continued. "But I made the records fit it. I told myself the machines were coming back and the entries would be corrected before the next audit." "Why did you wait until now?" "Because Cassidy said if I signed, the nonprofit would describe it as an accounting failure and pay for my lawyer. If I refused, she would tell the board I acted alone." "What changed?" "I saw the statement she wanted me to sign. She is not trying to protect Clear Skies. She is trying to build a wall out of everyone who helped her." I gave Tessa Helen's office number and told her not to send records directly to me. "I already contacted my own attorney," she said. "We have a meeting tomorrow." I kept my work papers, ledger exports, invoice files, and email correspondence outside the live accounting system. "As part of your CPA records?" "Yes. Some of it protects me. Some of it proves what I did." Her answer made me trust her more than an instant confession would have. Before ending the call, Tessa said there was one message I needed to understand before Cassidy reframed Marlene as an uninvolved mother. With her attorney's approval, she forwarded a screenshot to Helen, who sent me a secured copy later that night. The email had been written by Marlene 8 months before Dad's stroke. It was addressed to Cassidy and Tessa. The subject line said only inventory review. Mom had not written that she knew about every machine, every payment, or every false report. She had not confessed to a conspiracy. She had written 3 sentences. "Owen approved 40. Fix the inventory before he reviews it. And do not let Jocelyn see the grant files." My mother's email did not prove she had designed Cassidy's scheme. It proved she had known enough to help hide it. The message had been sent 8 months before Dad's stroke, long before anyone could blame his aphasia, confusion, or weakened health. Marlene had known Cassidy moved more machines than Owen authorized. She had known the records needed to be changed before he examined them. She had also known that I would recognize what was wrong if I saw the files. I read the email 3 times before closing it. For years, Mom had described me as the daughter who abandoned the family. Yet even after I left, she had measured her decisions against the possibility that I might return and ask the right questions. Tessa met Helen and me 2 days later at her attorney's office in Medford. Her lawyer, Benjamin Cole, sat beside her with a yellow legal pad and a stack of labeled folders. Tessa looked as if she had not slept since our phone call. Before we began, Benjamin made the boundaries clear. Tessa was cooperating through counsel. She was not receiving immunity. She would not speculate about Cassidy's motives, and she would not answer questions outside her personal knowledge. Helen agreed. Tessa opened the first folder. Inside were ledger exports, vendor invoices, bank statements, grant reports, and the work papers she had retained as part of her accounting records. Some pages carried handwritten notes. Others showed revision histories printed from the accounting system before Cassidy's administrator access was restricted. I changed dates, Tessa said. I kept the original Clear Skies asset numbers attached to machines after they were moved into Cassidy Events inventory. When older units were delivered to families, I entered them under the premium units asset tags. Who told you to do that? Helen asked. Cassidy. Was it verbal or written? Both. Tessa produced emails in which Cassidy referred to the substitutions as temporary rotations. In one message, she instructed Tessa to leave the premium serial numbers in the distribution ledger because replacing them would create unnecessary questions before the fleet was normalized. The fleet had never been normalized. It had expanded. The ledger showed that Owen's original agreement covered 40 machines. Within 3 months, Cassidy had moved 68. By the end of the following spring, 120 grant-funded purifiers had entered her company's rental inventory at least once. The related rental revenue totaled approximately $186,000. Some of the money had paid legitimate expenses connected to the purifiers, including filters, transportation, and limited maintenance. That was the part Cassidy emphasized whenever anyone questioned her. The rest, the company used it to make truck payments, cover warehouse leases, meet payroll, and service the loan it had taken out to expand. Several transfers also helped make payments connected to the home equity line secured by my parents' house. Tessa placed a copy of the deed of trust on the table. Both Owen and Marlene had signed it 4 months before Dad's stroke. The Price house was worth approximately $460,000. My parents still owed about $95,000 on their original mortgage. The home equity line secured another $185,000 for Cassidy's company. Cassidy owned no part of the house. She had simply tied its survival to her business. If the rental contracts stopped, I said, how far was the company from default? Tessa looked at Benjamin before answering. By the time Owen discovered the full number of machines, Cassidy Events had less than 6 weeks of operating cash. Without the grant units, the company could not fulfill several hotel contracts. Losing those contracts would have triggered missed payments. And the house? The lender would not have taken it immediately. There would have been notices, cure periods, and possible negotiations. But if the company remained in default, the property was exposed. The distinction mattered. Cassidy had told everyone that one canceled contract would throw our parents into the street. That was not true. The danger was real, but it was not instantaneous. Cassidy had used urgency to keep Owen and Marlene from asking whether every later decision was necessary. Tessa showed us another email written after Owen demanded a full inventory. Cassidy told her to delay reconciling the ledger until the end of the event season. We cannot let the bank see instability now. Keep the payments current and fix the paperwork after smoke season. Mom had not ordered Tessa to create the false reports. She had supported the delay and accepted the money that kept the loan current. What did you believe would happen? I asked Tessa. I thought the rentals would produce enough profit to buy replacement machines, restore the grant inventory, and repay the nonprofit before the next major audit. Did Cassidy ever have a written plan for that? No. You changed official records because you believed she would fix them later? Tessa looked at the folders in front of her. Yes. There was no good version of that answer. She did not ask us to find one. After the meeting, Helen forwarded the records to the grant administrator and the appropriate nonprofit regulator through secured channels. Tessa's attorney provided the same materials independently, along with a statement explaining which entries she had altered and why. No one record could carry the entire case. Together, they showed movement, money, knowledge, and concealment. My mother came to the motel that evening. She did not call first. I opened the door and found her standing in the hallway with the same leather folder she had used for household bills since I was a teenager. "I know Tessa gave you the loan documents," she said. I stayed inside the room. "How do you know?" "Cassidy's attorney told us." "Us?" "Your sister and me." Dad was no longer included in the word. Mom asked to come in. I stepped aside but left the door partly open. She noticed and gave me a bitter smile. "Afraid I will steal your inhaler too?" "No, I do not want you later saying the conversation happened differently." She sat in the chair beside the small motel desk. I remained near the window. "I knew the rentals went beyond 40 machines," she said. I did not know the final number until Owen confronted Cassidy. "You knew enough to tell Tessa to hide it from him." I told her to fix the records before he panicked. "You wrote, 'Do not let Jocelyn see the grant files.' Because you do not solve problems, you expose them. That is what you call it when the problem belongs to Cassidy." Mom opened the leather folder and removed a photograph of the Price house. It had been taken in late spring, when the maple tree near the porch was full and green. "My grandmother lived in that house," she said. "Your father was raised there. Both of you came." None of that gave Cassidy the right to use restricted equipment. "You have an apartment, a salary, health insurance, a job that let you leave town when you were 27 and never look back. I looked back every time one of you called to tell me Cassidy needed something. You were never dependent on that house. Neither was Cassidy until she put her company against it." Mom's face hardened. "You think independence makes you morally superior." "No. It made it easier for me to say no. That does not make the answer wrong." She closed the folder. "Cassidy stayed when Owen had his stroke. She managed his appointments, kept the bills paid, and kept the company alive. You appeared after he sent one photograph and decided the family should absorb whatever consequences make you feel honest. I thought of June's son sleeping beside an older purifier while the machine named on his certificate worked a wedding. The family did not absorb the first consequences," I said. "Other families did." Mom looked away. That was the only moment in the conversation when she appeared ashamed. It passed quickly. "There is a way to give the regulators what they need without destroying your father," she said. She removed a single sheet of paper from the folder. It was not a legal agreement. It was a proposed timeline. The first entry began after Owen's stroke. According to Mom's version, Cassidy expanded the rentals while Dad was medically vulnerable. Tessa altered the ledgers without adequate supervision. Marlene discovered irregularities only after Jocelyn returned. Owen's original authorization for 40 machines would be described as a limited fundraising experiment that Cassidy later exploited. The deleted warning email was omitted. Mom's instruction to hide the files from me was omitted. The deed of trust remained, but the timeline suggested my parents had been misled about the company's use of the money. "Cassidy would still lose Clear Skies," Mom said. "The board will remove her. The county can recover the machines, but your father would be treated as someone she deceived after his health declined. He signed before the stroke. He did not understand what she would turn it into. He understood enough to delete his warning." Mom's voice dropped. "No one needs that email. The investigators do. If Owen is treated as a participant, the lender and the regulators will be less willing to separate the house from Cassidy's conduct. You are asking me to hide evidence. I am asking you not to volunteer material that harms a stroke survivor when Cassidy is the person who expanded the scheme. Dad asked to tell all. He is ashamed. Shame is not capacity. He had an independent evaluation. You have made him believe confession is the only way to earn you back." I felt the accusation reach for the part of me that knew I had pressured him in the clinic. Mom saw the hesitation and leaned forward. "You can end this without punishing everyone," she said. "Give them the records after the stroke. Let Cassidy take responsibility. Let your father keep his home." For several seconds, the offer felt merciful. Cassidy would still lose her nonprofit title. The machines would still be recovered. The families would still learn the truth. Mom and Dad might keep the house. I could tell myself that Owen's earlier conduct was only background, not the center of the case. It was the kind of lie my family preferred. Not an invented fact, but a missing one. I folded the proposed timeline and handed it back. "No." Mom did not take it. "Think before you answer." I have. You are choosing paperwork over your parents. I am choosing not to alter the truth according to who I love. The truth will sell that house. The debt may sell it. Cassidy's company may sell it. You and Dad signing the deed of trust may sell it. My refusal to hide those facts is not what created them. Mom rose so quickly that the chair struck the wall. You will regret this when he has nowhere to go. Dad will have somewhere to go. It may not be that house. She stared at me as if I had spoken about tearing down a person instead of selling property. Then she left the paper on the desk and walked out. The next morning, I met Owen at his attorney's office. His lawyer had prepared a simplified summary with two options. The first disclosed only events after his stroke and emphasized Cassidy's independent expansion. The second disclosed the entire timeline, including his authorization, the deleted email, Marlene's knowledge, and the loan. The consequences were written in plain language. Option 1 might reduce his immediate legal and financial exposure, but it would conceal material facts. Option 2 could contribute to penalties, repayment obligations, and the sale of the house. No one asked me to explain the pages. Dad read them with Mara beside him. His attorney answered his questions. When he became tired, they stopped for 15 minutes. Then Dad selected option 2. His tablet spoke the sentence he had prepared. House can go, truth stays. I did not praise him for choosing correctly. He was accepting a consequence he had delayed until other people had already paid part of it. What do you want me to do? I asked. Do not edit me, he typed. That afternoon, the records went out from independent sources. Tessa's attorney submitted her ledgers and emails. Owen's attorney submitted his agreement, warning email, statement, and capacity documentation. Helen provided the materials Jocelyn lawfully possessed. Grant and the county supplied the serial analysis, hotel records, and inspection findings. The county grant administrator, the state nonprofit regulator, and the Clear Skies board attorney coordinated the next procedural step. In early January, written preservation notices, litigation holds, and a no-transfer directive were served on Clear Skies, Cassidy Events and Air, Cassidy personally, Tessa, Eli Navarro, and the relevant vendors. The documents identified the grant machines, accounting records, cloud files, phones, warehouse footage, vehicle data, and communications that could not be altered, destroyed, or moved without authorization. Proof of service was recorded. The board scheduled a special meeting for the end of the month. The notice stated its purpose clearly: to consider Cassidy's suspension or termination as executive director and officer. All 5 board members received the agenda. The board attorney confirmed quorum requirements. A public briefing would take place the same day so donors and affected families could hear the audit findings. The audience could listen and speak during the designated period. They could not vote. Cassidy announced that she welcomed the meeting. Through her attorney, she said she would accept responsibility for management failures, explain how Tessa's bookkeeping caused the discrepancies, and show that Owen had approved the rental program. She still believed the room would remember the nights she delivered, filters more strongly than it remembered the machines she took away. The night before the meeting, Mara sent me a short video from Owen's apartment assessment visit. Dad sat at a table with his tablet while she asked whether he wanted to rehearse his opening statement again. He pressed yes. His hand moved slowly across the screen. When he finished, the electronic voice spoke 6 words. I signed the first lie. For the first time, I understood exactly what Cassidy would face the next morning. She had prepared to hide behind our father's signature. Owen was coming to tell the room what that signature had cost. The special board meeting took place in the same community center where Cassidy had held my inhaler above me 5 months earlier. The haze machine was gone. In its place stood 3 folding tables, 5 board members, 2 attorneys, the county grant administrator, and a sealed air purifier that had once sat in June Bell's son's bedroom. Red Cedar residents filled nearly every chair. Reporters lined the back wall. A deputy remained near the entrance because Cassidy's attorney had warned that emotions might run high. Helen sat beside me in the second row. You are not here to win the room, she whispered. You are here to tell the truth when asked. Across the aisle, Cassidy sat between Marlene and her attorney. She wore a pale blue suit and the expression she used in donation videos when discussing someone else's tragedy. A few supporters carried small Stand With Cassidy signs. Others looked at the sealed purifier and avoided her eyes. The board attorney opened the meeting by explaining the procedure. The public could hear the audit findings and speak during the designated comment period. The 5 board members alone would decide whether Cassidy remained executive director and an officer of Clear Skies Red Cedar. No audience reaction could remove her. No reporter could convict her. Any criminal investigation would proceed separately. Cassidy's attorney immediately requested a postponement. He argued that the financial review remained incomplete and that public discussion could damage her reputation before she had been charged with a crime. The board chair denied the request. "This meeting concerns Miss Price's management authority over charitable assets," she said, "not criminal guilt." The county grant administrator spoke first. He presented the original purchase order for 120 high-grade purifiers. The county-administered grant required the machines to remain under nonprofit control, be distributed according to approved eligibility rules, and never be rented commercially without written county authorization. No such authorization existed. The temporary agreement signed by Owen allowed up to 40 machines to be rented during the low-smoke season, but even that agreement violated the grant restrictions. It also required every machine to return before July 1st and all revenue to flow back to Clear Skies. Neither condition had been met. The administrator displayed photographs from Hotel Alder Ridge. 21 grant-funded purifiers had been found there in late August, wearing Cassidy Events and Air stickers. Hotel loading logs, preserved security footage, and manufacturer serial numbers linked the machines to the Clear Skies shipment. Cassidy's attorney rose. "My client has never denied that equipment was used to generate revenue for the nonprofit." The administrator looked toward him. "The reviewed bank records show substantial revenue entering the private company before limited amounts were transferred to Clear Skies." "How much is substantial?" a board member asked. "Approximately $186,000 in commercial rental income connected to grant-funded machines." A murmur moved through the room. Cassidy turned toward the audience. "That money paid employees, transported machines, replaced filters, and kept the program operating," she said. "Without my company, many families would have received nothing." The board chair reminded her to wait until her presentation. Cassidy sat down, but she did not look worried. She still believed the numbers could be reframed as sacrifice. Then June's machine was moved to the center of the room. The county technician confirmed that June had voluntarily transferred it under a signed receipt. The manufacturer plate, internal asset sticker, filter, and power cord had been photographed, sealed, and tracked through every stage of examination. The donation certificate claimed June's family had received a new premium unit. The machine itself was an older model. The premium serial assigned to June's household appeared in a wedding photograph and later at Hotel Alder Ridge. The old machine showed reduced airflow and overdue maintenance. The technician did not claim it had caused June's son's asthma attack. He stated that it had failed to provide the level of filtration promised on the certificate during a hazardous smoke period. June approached the microphone wearing the same work scrubs she had worn the first time we met. "Cassidy did come to my house when my son was struggling," she said. "I was grateful. I am still grateful that someone came. But gratitude does not change the machine she gave us." Cassidy stared at her. June continued. "I never agreed to accept an older substitute. I never agreed to let the new machine assigned to my child earn rental money at weddings." One of Cassidy's supporters lowered her sign. Grant spoke next. He described the disputed reports bearing his signature. Priya Shah displayed the repeated pixel gap, compression shadow, and identical dark speck, proving that the same scanned signature had been inserted into multiple documents. Grant confirmed under oath that he had not approved the commercial transfers or signed the distribution reports. "I should have detected the discrepancies sooner," he said. "That failure is mine. The signatures are not." Tessa's appearance changed the room more than any spreadsheet. She did not sit with Cassidy. She entered beside her own attorney and placed 3 binders on the witness table. Tessa admitted altering dates, preserving false asset numbers, and recording old machines under the identities of premium units. She explained that Cassidy called the changes temporary rotations and promised the rental profits would restore the inventory before the next audit. "Did you believe the records were accurate when you submitted them?" the board attorney asked. "No." "Who instructed you to maintain the premium serial numbers?" "Cassidy Price." Cassidy stood. "That is a lie." Her attorney pulled her back into her chair. Tessa's lawyer provided the emails. One contained Cassidy's instruction to keep the original serials because changing them would create questions before the fleet was normalized. Another ordered Tessa to delay reconciliation until the event season ended. Tessa also produced the statement Cassidy had recently asked her to sign. It assigned all responsibility for the serial substitutions and copied signatures to Tessa. "I changed the records," Tessa said. "I deserve consequences for that. I will not accept responsibility for decisions I did not make." Cassidy looked toward Marlene. Mom reached for her hand, but Cassidy pulled away. The board recessed for 15 minutes before Owen's statement. Mara adjusted Dad's tablet and checked the volume. His independent attorney confirmed that Owen had completed a capacity evaluation and had chosen to participate. When Dad reached the microphone, the room became quiet enough for me to hear the soft mechanical sound of his wheelchair. He had prepared his opening sentence. I signed the first lie. The tablet's electronic voice stripped away emotion, forcing everyone to listen to the words. Owen confirmed that he approved the temporary use of 40 machines. He believed rental revenue could support Clear Skies during the low smoke season and protect the company loan secured by the family home. He had not obtained county approval. When he discovered that Cassidy had moved more machines and given older replacements to families, he ordered a full inventory. Then he deleted his own warning email and allowed Cassidy 60 days to fix the problem privately. "Why did you remain silent?" the board attorney asked. Dad selected the answer he had prepared. "I feared losing house. I feared blame. I protected family name before families." Cassidy shook her head. "He is repeating what Jocelyn taught him," she said. Dad turned toward her. His fingers moved slowly across the screen. My stroke slowed speech. It did not create facts. Several people in the audience began to clap. The board chair stopped them before it grew. Dad admitted Marlene knew the rentals had exceeded 40 machines. He did not claim she designed the scheme. He stated that she supported delaying the inventory correction because the company was using rental income to keep the loan current. Marlene covered her mouth. Cassidy's attorney asked whether Dad had been angry with his younger daughter when he composed the statement. Dad selected yes. "Did Jocelyn pressure you during a therapy session?" Dad selected yes again. I felt every face in the room turn toward me. "Did that pressure influence your decision to accuse Cassidy?" the attorney asked. Dad took longer to answer. "Jocelyn spoke over me, then she stopped. Cassidy spoke for me for months and called it care." The attorney did not ask another question. My own statement came near the end. I described the attack without interpreting Cassidy's thoughts. I explained when I left the haze, when I used my inhaler, and why I called 911. I acknowledged that I had pressured Owen during our first clinic meeting, and that Cassidy's edited video showed a real mistake. Then Helen asked whether I consented to a limited, redacted portion of the emergency call being played. Yes. The board attorney confirmed that the recording had been lawfully obtained, preserved, and edited to remove unrelated medical and identifying information. The audio began with my strained voice, giving the dispatcher the east entrance location. Then came Cassidy's voice. "Gasp, loser. This will be hilarious." The room heard me ask for the inhaler. They heard the dispatcher order Cassidy to return it. They heard Cassidy claim I had already used too much. They heard Marlene say the paramedics were probably coming. No one heard a dramatic confession. They heard something worse. Ordinary cruelty spoken by people who believed they controlled the story. When the recording ended, Cassidy stood before her attorney could stop her. "She was not dying," she said. The ambulance was already on the way. June stared at her from the front row. Cassidy seemed to realize what she had admitted. The board entered executive session with counsel, then returned 40 minutes later. By a vote of 4-1, Cassidy was terminated as executive director and removed as an officer of Clear Skies Red Cedar. Her access to accounts, donor systems, facilities, vehicles, and nonprofit records was revoked immediately. The board referred the audit findings to the state regulator and law enforcement agencies already reviewing the matter. The decision did not remove her from the room in handcuffs. Cassidy looked almost relieved. In the hallway, she stopped beside me while her attorney spoke to a reporter. "This is an employment decision," she said, "not a conviction." "I know. Tessa changed the records. Dad signed the agreement. The money kept the company alive. No jury will turn that into what you want. You still think this is about what I want? She leaned closer. You had your public humiliation. Enjoy it. The rest is paperwork. Cassidy left with Marlene before the board could collect every access card. That evening, Helen called to remind me that no arrest was imminent. Investigators would still need records, interviews, warrants where required, and proof of individual intent. Cassidy understood that too. What she misunderstood was the preservation directive served 3 weeks earlier. It prohibited her from moving the identified machines or altering their labels, records, cloud files, and related communications. At 11:46 that night, Grant forwarded Helen a screenshot supplied by Cassidy's warehouse supervisor. The message had come from Cassidy's phone less than an hour after the meeting. Move every purifier from the South Annex before sunrise. Strip the company stickers and remove every red mark. If anyone asks, those units were never part of Clear Skies. Cassidy's message did what 5 months of excuses had failed to do. It gave investigators a direct order to move identified assets, alter physical markings, and lie about their origin after she had received a written no-transfer directive. The warehouse supervisor, Eli Navarro, did not follow the order. He took screenshots showing the sender, time, and full message thread, then contacted Grant and the attorney handling the Grant investigation. He also preserved the warehouse access logs and the exterior camera footage before the system's normal retention period could erase them. Eli was not the only person Cassidy contacted. She sent a second set of instructions to the manager of Cassidy Events and Air's South Annex, where another group of purifiers had been stored after leaving Unit 47. That manager told a delivery crew that the equipment had to be moved before morning because of an insurance issue. The crew loaded 32 purifiers onto 2 company trucks. They did not know about the preservation directive. By the time investigators learned the trucks were moving, the vehicles were already on the highway. No one called me to chase them. No one asked me to follow Cassidy or confront the drivers. The investigators obtained the information they needed, documented the urgency, and sought the appropriate warrants. The truck's fleet system preserved GPS data. Traffic cameras captured their routes. One vehicle went to a rented agricultural building outside Klamath Falls. The other stopped behind a closed event venue near Grants Pass. When officers executed the warrants, they found grant-funded purifiers stacked behind curtains, lighting equipment, and banquet furniture. Several Cassidy Events stickers had been peeled away. On 11 machines, someone had tried to scrape off Dad's red wax marks. The manufacturer plates remained. Metal could be scratched. Serial numbers could still be read. The delivery crew told investigators exactly who had called them, what they had been told, and where they had been instructed to take the machines. Their statements did not make them heroes or criminals. They were employees who had believed they were completing an ordinary transfer until police arrived. Cassidy had spent years building systems where other people performed the risky parts for her. This time, those people kept records. 3 days after the board meeting, Tessa received a proposed affidavit from Cassidy's attorney. It stated that Tessa alone had reused Grant's signature, misclassified the equipment, and concealed the errors from Cassidy. The affidavit also claimed that Owen's authorization covered every machine moved into commercial service. Tessa refused to sign it. Cassidy then sent her a voice message. She reminded Tessa that accountants who falsified charitable records could lose their careers. She warned that if Tessa testified, Cassidy would tell investigators she had stolen money and created the entire scheme without supervision. "You can still fix this," Cassidy said in the message. "Say you panicked when Jocelyn came back. Say you changed the reports because you were afraid she would expose your mistakes." Tessa forwarded the message to her attorney. It did not erase Tessa's responsibility. She had knowingly altered records and helped conceal the substitutions. But the attempt to make her withdraw truthful cooperation added another layer to Cassidy's conduct. The final evidence came from Cassidy's own phone. She had deleted the original asthma video and claimed the version posted online was the only file she retained. Investigators obtained access to the connected cloud account through legal process. The service provider preserved an automatically uploaded copy, created before Cassidy edited it. The original recording began earlier than the public clip. It showed the haze machine operating after I asked for it to be turned off. It showed Cassidy watching me leave the room. It showed her following with her camera already raised. The most damaging seconds came after the dispatcher's voice sounded from my phone. Cassidy looked directly at the dark screen near my knee. She lowered her own phone for a moment, clearly listening as the dispatcher identified herself and ordered the inhaler returned. Then Cassidy lifted her camera again. She kept the inhaler for 6 more seconds. 6 seconds did not sound important when spoken aloud. On the recording, they felt much longer. She used them to frame my face, tell the camera I was panicking, and position herself as the reasonable person in the scene. Then she dropped the medication beside me only when the sirens became loud enough to enter her recording. Cassidy had always insisted she did not know the call was active. The original file proved that by the end, she did. The legal process took another 10 months. There was no single morning when every charge appeared and every question disappeared. Investigators reviewed the grant records, bank transfers, hotel contracts, warehouse footage, cloud files, vehicle data, and witness statements. Attorneys argued over what Cassidy knew, what Owen authorized, and which financial losses could be directly connected to each decision. Owen cooperated through his own lawyer. He admitted signing the first rental agreement, deleting his warning email, and delaying disclosure because he feared losing the house. He resigned from every remaining advisory role connected to Clear Skies and agreed to contribute toward restitution from his share of the home sale. Tessa accepted responsibility for falsifying records and cooperated under an agreement that did not promise her freedom from consequences. She lost her position, paid a professional penalty, and was prohibited from handling nonprofit accounts for a defined period. Grant's office underwent an administrative review for failing to detect the copied signatures and inventory discrepancies sooner. The truth did not select one person and wash everyone else clean. Cassidy's position was different because she had directed the expansion, controlled the private company that earned the revenue, continued the substitutions after Owen ordered them stopped, used false reports to conceal the movement, withheld my medication, and then attempted to move assets and pressure a witness after formal preservation orders were served. Her attorneys initially sought a resolution that would avoid incarceration. They described the equipment scheme as an unauthorized but well-intentioned financing strategy that grew beyond her control. The obstruction evidence destroyed that argument. Cassidy eventually entered a plea agreement covering the financial scheme, falsified records, unlawful control of charitable assets, and her later attempts to interfere with the investigation and witness testimony. The asthma incident was included in the factual record and supported a separate charge related to knowingly interfering with my access to emergency medication. At sentencing, the courtroom was smaller than the community center and far quieter. Cassidy's attorney spoke about the families she had helped before the scheme began. Several people submitted letters describing nights when she had delivered filters, arranged transportation, or answered calls no one else returned. Those things were true. So were the machines she diverted. The judge did not treat good acts as credits that could be exchanged for permission to harm different people later. Cassidy received a prison sentence, supervised release afterward, restitution obligations, and a prohibition against managing charitable funds or serving as an officer of a nonprofit. Cassidy Events and Air collapsed after its contracts were canceled and its equipment was seized or sold. Before sentencing, Cassidy asked to speak with me through our attorneys. Helen advised me that I did not owe her a meeting. I agreed because I wanted to hear what she believed could still be negotiated. Cassidy entered the conference room wearing county-issued clothing and no makeup. Without the polished hair, cameras, and blue Clear Skies banners, she looked younger and more tired. She did not apologize. Instead, she placed a proposed statement on the table. It said the inhaler incident had been a misunderstanding between sisters. It said she believed I had already taken enough medication and feared I might harm myself by using more. If I signed it, her attorney could present it before sentencing as evidence that the medical charge had been overstated. "You know I did not want you to die," she said. "I know you wanted the video more than you wanted to return the inhaler. The ambulance was already coming. That was your excuse then, too." Her mouth tightened. "One sentence from you could take years off this. One false sentence. You already got everything. The board, the company, the house. What more do you need?" "I did not get the house. You made sure Mom and Dad lost it. The loan and your company lost it." She leaned toward me. You always find a way to sound clean. I thought about the clinic video, the accusation that I spoke over Dad, and the parts of myself I had been forced to examine. I am not clean, I said. I pressured Dad because I thought being right gave me control. I accused Grant before I had proof. I left Red Cedar and used distance to avoid knowing how bad things had become. I have admitted those things without asking anyone to lie for me. Cassidy looked at the unsigned statement. You know what they will do to me. No, I said. You knew what you were doing each time someone asked you to stop. I pushed the paper back across the table. When I was 27, one truthful sentence from me could have exposed what you did to that fundraiser. Mom and Dad asked me to stay quiet. And I did. I will not use another lie to save you again. I left before she could make me the center of her sentence. The Price house sold 4 months later. After the mortgage, home equity balance, fees, and agreed restitution contribution were paid, Owen and Marlene each received far less than either had expected to inherit from the property. Marlene moved into a rented duplex across town. She and I spoke only through short messages concerning Dad's medical records and the final division of household belongings. She never apologized for the inhaler or the email to Tessa. I stopped waiting for her to become someone who would. Owen moved into an accessible apartment near his rehabilitation clinic. He chose it because the kitchen counters were low enough for his wheelchair, the bathroom had proper supports, and the building offered transportation without requiring a family member to control his schedule. I did not move back to Red Cedar. I returned to Eugene, resumed my full responsibilities at work, and visited Dad twice a month because that was what we both agreed to. Mara continued his speech therapy. A professional fiduciary handled his bills. He was not my project, and I was not his replacement voice. 3 months after Cassidy began serving her sentence, I helped Dad unpack the last box in his apartment. Inside were 2 coffee mugs, an old radio, family photographs, and the red wax pencil he had used to mark the purifiers when they first arrived. Dad held the pencil for a moment, then placed it in the kitchen drawer. He did not display it like a trophy. That evening, we ordered dinner from a small restaurant nearby. The delivery driver stood at the door and asked what name to place on the building's customer list for future orders. I opened my mouth automatically. Then I stopped. Dad lifted his tablet. The driver waited without rushing him. Owen typed his own name, apartment number, and delivery instructions. The electronic voice read them aloud. When the driver left, Dad looked at me and smiled. For most of my life, my family had called control care, silence loyalty, and endurance love. They had kept deciding who was allowed to speak, who had to stay quiet, and whose breathing could wait until the camera stopped recording. I could not change the years behind us. I could choose what happened in that room. Dad spoke for himself. I listened. And for the first time in a long time, neither of us had to ask permission to breathe. You should never confuse silence with loyalty or control with love. When someone asks you to hide wrongdoing to protect a family name, a house, a business, or a reputation, remember that the consequences do not disappear. They are simply transferred to someone less powerful. Jocelyn's family protected Cassidy again and again, and every excuse taught her that other people's safety mattered less than her image. The cycle ended only when Jocelyn refused to alter the truth. Even though honesty cost her family their home and forced her father to face his own choices, you can support someone without lying for them. And you can love your relatives without rescuing them from consequences they knowingly created. When a person is sick, injured, frightened, or unable to speak quickly, listen to them instead of deciding what they need. Keep records, seek qualified help, respect legal procedures, and accept support from trustworthy people. Most importantly, do not wait for an abuser to admit what they did before protecting yourself. Their apology is not required for your boundaries to be valid. If this story reminded you that truth and accountability are necessary forms of care, subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more stories about people who finally choose courage over silence.